Beneath the placid surface of our waking world, beyond the comfortable certainties of science and the gentle reassurances of faith, there lies an ocean of truth so vast and so cold that to dip even a single finger into its depths is to risk the shattering of the soul. This is not a truth of good and evil, not a struggle between light and darkness, but a truth of scale and indifference. It is the chilling realization that humanity, with all its triumphs and tragedies, its art and its ambition, is but a fleeting accident, a fragile colony of moss clinging to a forgotten stone adrift in an endless star-dusted sea. This is the foundation of the eldritch, the very heart of cosmic horror. This particular strain of terror was given a voice not in the shrieks of a haunted house or the snarling of a werewolf, but in the quiet, measured prose of a lonely gentleman from Providence. Howard Phillips Lovecraft did not fear monsters in the conventional sense. His horror was not born of malice, but of mathematics, a terror derived from the simple, crushing arithmetic of the cosmos. His tales whispered of a universe so ancient, so utterly alien in its mechanics, that the concerns of mankind register as less than the frantic scurrying of ants beneath a scholar's boot. In this uncaring expanse, beings of immense power and unimaginable consciousness drift through the black gulfs between worlds, their thoughts shaping realities, their slumbering stirring the tides of madness on 1,000 unsuspecting planets. These are the old ones, the outer gods, and their distant cosmic cousins, the great ones. And over the hours to come, we will journey into the two most potent reflections of their terrible reality. The fog-shrouded, gaslit streets of New England's haunted coast, and the blood-soaked, Gothic spires of the cursed city of Yharnam are but different shores of the same abyssal ocean. They are landscapes defined not by their geography, but by their proximity to this overwhelming, mind-breaking truth. They are places where the veil between what is and what should not be has worn terrifyingly thin. To understand these beings, we must first abandon our own definitions of life and purpose. They are not gods in the way we comprehend divinity, to be worshipped or placated. Many are described as forces of nature, as unthinking and absolute as a star's collapse or the slow grinding movement of a glacier. Others, like those encountered in the depths of the Sumerian labyrinths, are said to be sympathetic in spirit. Yet this sympathy is so utterly alien in its expression that its touch brings only transformation and despair. They exist across multiple dimensions simultaneously, perceiving time not as a linear progression, but as a vast, complex tapestry they can view all at once. Their thoughts are not electrical impulses in a fragile brain, but transcendental energies that can birth entire realms of nightmare, self-contained universes born from a moment of sorrow or a fleeting cosmic desire. The true horror, the catalyst for every tragedy we will explore, is not the existence of these beings, but humanity's discovery of them. In every generation, there are those who feel the pull of the abyss, scholars and madmen who sense the greater reality churning just beyond their perception. In the hallowed, dust-choked halls of Miskatonic University, they pore over forbidden tomes bound in human skin, deciphering languages that were dead before the continents took their present shape. At the secluded College of Bergenworth, they lower themselves into ancient Cyclopean ruins, seeking communion with what was left behind. Their quest is not for power in the mortal sense, but for a glimpse of the machinery that operates behind the curtain of reality. They crave what they call insight, or what a Bergenworth scholar once famously described as the need for more eyes. This fatal curiosity is the original sin from which all other horrors spring. For the human mind is a delicate instrument, evolved to comprehend a deeply limited slice of reality. It is built to navigate the predictable world of seasons and societies, of cause and effect. It is not designed to withstand the revelation that these laws are mere local bylaws, applicable only in our quiet corner of the cosmos. To be granted eyes on the inside is to see the gears of creation, to witness the simultaneous past, present, and future, to perceive the colossal multi-limbed shapes that lurk just outside our field of vision. And this revelation is invariably a poison. For some, the mind simply shatters, unable to reconcile the comfortable fiction of human importance with the stark reality of cosmic insignificance. Their sanity frays and unravels, leaving them as gibbering prophets of a truth no one else can see. Their words a fragmented translation of the whispers they now hear on the stellar winds. For others, the transformation is more physical. The forbidden knowledge acts as a catalyst, a seed of alien biology that takes root in their very flesh. They begin to change, their bodies warping to better reflect the cosmic truths they have embraced. They become something more, and yet infinitely less than human. They become the deep-water hybrids of Innsmouth, the ghoulish scavengers of Boston's undertunnels, or the pale, bulbous-headed kin of the healing church. They gain cosmic perspective at the absolute cost of their humanity. This, then, is the journey we are about to undertake. It is a descent, a slow, patient exploration of these blighted landscapes and the cosmic tragedies that define them. We will navigate the abyssal currents of their lore, deciphering the whispers left in crumbling ruins and the fragmented diaries of those who came before. We will explore the nature of the Great One's profound loss and their ceaseless, tragic yearning for surrogate children. We will uncover the secrets of the Old One's long slumber and the terrifying consequences of their eventual awakening. We will meet the cultists who worship them, the scholars who study them, and the hunters who fight them, witnessing the myriad ways humanity breaks itself upon the shores of their existence. So let the waking world and its small anxieties begin to fade. Allow the rhythm of this tale to guide your thoughts away from the mundane and into the sublime and terrifying dark. We are stepping out of our small, firelit room and into the cold, silent, and star-drowned night. There are truths waiting for us in the deep places of the earth and the black gulfs of space, truths that were never meant for mortal minds. Welcome to the nightmare. Let us begin our journey into its depths, before we can truly comprehend the sorrow of the Great Ones, or the slumbering dread of the Old Ones. We must first attune our minds to the frequency of their existence. We must understand the very nature of the horror they represent. This is not the familiar terror of the sharp knife in the dark, nor the spectral chill of a haunted house. It is a more profound, more philosophical dread, a creeping realization of humanity's true place in a cosmos that is not hostile, but infinitely and terrifyingly indifferent. This is the foundation of cosmic horror, the truth that underpins both the blood-soaked streets of Yharnam and the sunken ruins of R'lyeh. The first and most fundamental tenet of cosmic horror is the utter insignificance of mankind. All of human history, with its grand empires, its breathtaking art, its profound philosophies, is but a momentary flicker in the unblinking eye of eternity. We exist upon a fragile crust of rock, circling a nondescript star in a forgotten corner of one galaxy among billions. This truth is not presented as a spiritual comfort, a call to humility, but as a stark and cold fact. Our greatest triumphs, our deepest loves, our most sacred beliefs, they are but whispers in a cosmic hurricane, unheard and unheeded by the silent, ancient forces that churn in the darkness between the stars. The universe was not made for us, and our eventual disappearance will go as unnoticed as our arrival. This leads to the second, equally chilling principle, the concept of cosmic indifference. The beings that exist in these outer voids, the Great Ones and Old Ones, are not evil. To label them as such would be a comforting act of anthropomorphism, a way of projecting our own limited moral frameworks onto forces that operate entirely outside of them. The concept of evil requires an awareness of our existence, a choice to inflict harm upon something deemed worthy of attention. These ancient powers, however, are not our enemies. Their destructiveness is incidental, a consequence of their movement through realities we can barely perceive. Much as a man walking through a field pays no mind to the ants he crushes beneath his feet, the horror comes not from being hated, but from not mattering enough to be hated at all. Their sympathy, when it does manifest, is as alien and dangerous as their apathy, a misguided attempt at connection that warps and shatters the fragile mortal psyche. The third pillar of this eldritch philosophy is the absolute incomprehensibility of the universe. The reality we perceive through our limited senses is a comforting illusion, a thin veil draped over an abyss of terrifying truth. Our science, our logic, our religions are all just intricate sandcastles, built at the edge of an infinite, unknowable ocean. The pursuit of knowledge, so often lauded as humanity's greatest virtue, becomes in this context a path to self-destruction. The protagonists of these tales are often scholars, antiquarians, and scientists, driven by a thirst for understanding. But the knowledge they seek is forbidden not by some divine decree, but by the fundamental limitations of the human mind. To gain eyes on the inside, as the scholars of Bergenworth would later call it, is to invite the abyss to gaze back into you. Each forbidden text, each cryptic rune, each glimpse into the realms beyond, peels back another layer of blissful ignorance, exposing the mind to a reality so vast and alien that it cannot be processed. It can only be endured. This leads to the crucial theme of madness. In the world of cosmic horror, sanity is not a measure of mental health, but a measure of ignorance. The sane are simply those who have not yet seen the truth. Is not the breaking of the mind, but its forceful and violent expansion. It is a mind stretched beyond its designated limits to accommodate a truth it was never meant to contain, like pouring an ocean into a teacup. The result is a shattering, a recalibration of the self to a new and horrifying paradigm. Those who are deemed mad are not seeing things that are not there. Rather, they are seeing what has been there all along, hidden behind the veil. Their screams are not born of delusion, but of a terrible and undeniable clarity. They have seen the gears of the universe, and have understood that humanity is not even a cog in the machine, but merely dust to be ground away by its ceaseless, indifferent turning. The beings themselves are a reflection of this incomprehensible nature. They are not creatures that can be understood through the lens of terrestrial biology. Their forms defy the comfortable logic of our world, often described as blasphemous hybrids, amalgams of impossible geometry, of writhing tentacles, mismatched limbs, and countless, unblinking eyes. They are beings of non-Euclidean angles and dimensions our minds cannot grasp. Their very presence can warp physical laws, and their whispers can unravel the tapestry of a person's soul. They are formless, like Edon, existing only as a voice or a presence in the blood. They are slumbering titans, like Cthulhu, whose dreams infect the minds of sensitive mortals across the globe. Or they are pitiable, left behind things like Ebrietas, a cosmic orphan whose very grief can rewrite the rules of reality. Ultimately, the nature of cosmic horror is not the fear of a monster jumping from the shadows. It is the fear of the shadow itself. It is the creeping dread that comes from looking up at the night sky and feeling not a sense of wonder, but a profound and crushing loneliness. It is the quiet, persistent terror that our reality is a fragile fiction, and that just beyond our perception, ancient and colossal things stir in their sleep. Their dreams are our nightmares, and their awakening would be our unmaking, an event of no more significance to the cosmos than the closing of a book after the final page has been read. This is the stage upon which our story unfolds. A world where insight is a curse, and the price of truth is the very mind that seeks it. To define a thing is to place it within boundaries, to draw a line around its essence and separate it from all that it is not. But how does one draw a line around the infinite? How can mortal language, a tool forged in the finite world of cause and effect, possibly describe beings whose very existence is the cause, and whose effect is the shattering of reality itself? The great ones of Yharnam and the old ones of the cosmic abyss are not simply creatures to be catalogued, nor gods to be worshipped in any conventional sense. They are fundamental principles of a universe far older and vaster than our own, architects of a void that exists both in the cold expanse between the stars and in the sorrowful chambers of a grieving heart. The architects of Bloodborne's reality are, above all else, architects of sorrow. The great ones, for all their multidimensional power and their ability to perceive time as a placid lake, are defined not by their strength, but by their profound and unending sense of loss. They are described, in the fragmented texts of Byrgenworth, as sympathetic in spirit, a sympathy born from a shared, eternal tragedy. Every great one loses its child, and then yearns for a surrogate. This singular, heartbreaking truth is the blueprint for their architecture. The nightmare realms are not constructs of malice, but elaborate, desperate nurseries built from grief and longing. The hunter's dream is not a prison, but a meticulously crafted cosmic cradle, designed to rock a potential child into a state of higher awareness. Their influence upon humanity is not an invasion, but a desperate, fumbling reach for connection. The touch of a being so vast that its gentle caress shatters the fragile minds of those it seeks to comfort. They are beings of immense power, yet this power is wielded in service of a terrible vulnerability. They build worlds to fill an emptiness within themselves, an emotional void that their cosmic perspective cannot bridge, making them not distant deities, but tragic, lonely parents on a scale beyond all mortal comprehension. Across a different, colder void exist architects of an entirely different nature. The old ones of the Lovecraftian mythos, the outer gods and great old ones, are not driven by sorrow, but by forces so alien they preclude emotion entirely. They are architects of indifference, where a great one like the moon presence builds a dream from a yearning for a child. A being like Azathoth, the blind idiot god, bubbles and blasphemes at the center of all infinity, its mindless dreams creating and uncreating realities without intent or awareness. The universe is but its fleeting, chaotic thought. Great Cthulhu does not yearn for humanity from his sunken city of Erlai. He simply sleeps, and his dreams are a psychic poison that seeps into the minds of sensitive mortals, driving them to madness not out of malice, but as a mountain's shadow chills the ground below it. Their architecture is not a conscious act of creation, but an incidental byproduct of their very existence. The non-Euclidean geometry of their cities, the impossible angles that defy logic, are not designed to frighten. They are simply the way these beings naturally perceive and shape space, a perception so alien that the human mind fractures upon witnessing it. They are not parents seeking children, but cosmic forces, as uncaring and unaware of humanity as a hurricane is of the anthill that lies in its path. And yet, these two pantheons, one of tragic need and the other of absolute apathy, share a common foundation. They are both architects of the void. For the great ones, this is the internal void of loss, a hollow space they desperately try to fill with a surrogate child. For the old ones, it is the external void of cosmic meaninglessness, the chilling truth that human existence is a fleeting accident in an unfeeling universe. Both groups shape reality not through magic, as a mortal might understand it, but through their very being. Their consciousness is a fundamental law of physics. They do not bend reality to their will. Their will tuned to Systype, the shape of reality in their vicinity. This is why their presence is so transformative. To be near them is to exist within a different set of rules, where thought can become substance, where dreams can bleed into the waking world, and where the lines between life and death become blurred beyond all recognition. Their form, or often their formlessness, is another shared trait. Edon's existence as pure consciousness finds a dark echo in a being like Yog-Sothoth, who is the gate and the key, a conglomeration of iridescent globes that exists across all of space and time. This transcendence of physical limitation is the source of their power, but also the source of the gulf that separates them from us, a gulf that one group desperately tries to cross, while the other does not even perceive that it exists. Ultimately, the definition of these beings is reflected in the shadow they cast upon humanity. We are the canvas upon which their architecture is revealed. In the world of Bloodborne, humanity is a crucial component, a necessary material for the Great One's grand, tragic project. We are potential surrogates, sources of insight, beings whose unique mortal consciousness is both the key and the prize. We are sought after, chosen, and often destroyed by the very attention we receive. The horror is one of intimacy, the terror of being loved by a god whose embrace is annihilation. In the universe of the Old Ones, however, humanity is entirely inconsequential. We are not a material for their architecture. We are simply the dust that settles upon it. Our madness, our cults, our desperate attempts to understand are but the fleeting, meaningless patterns of static that occur when a frail receiver is brought too close to an impossibly powerful transmitter. The horror here is one of irrelevance. The terror of realizing that the greatest powers in the universe are not hostile towards you, but are not aware you exist at all. They are architects of the void, and whether that void is a space waiting to be filled with a child's love, or a vast silent emptiness that echoes with our own insignificance, the result for mankind is the same. We are left standing at the edge of an abyss, staring into a darkness that was built by hands, or forces, far greater than our own, forever changed by the terrible, soul-shattering glimpse of the blueprints. Before the first star ignited the black expanse, before the concept of time had carved its linear path through the fabric of existence, there was only the silent, boundless ocean of the cosmos. In this unthinking, unfeeling void, there were no laws of physics, as mortals would come to know them, no up nor down, no beginning nor end. It was a state of pure potential, a canvas of absolute nothingness upon which the first, incomprehensible thoughts would eventually be painted. The origins of the Great Ones and the Old Ones cannot be found within the familiar chronicles of planetary evolution or biological ancestry, for their genesis predates the very concepts of life and matter. They are not creatures born of a world, but rather fundamental principles of the universe that awoke slowly and terribly to their own existence. From this primordial stillness, they did not emerge through birth or creation, but rather coalesced, like thoughts gathering, in a dreaming mind of impossible scale. Imagine cosmic dust and raw energy, not forming stars or galaxies, but instead weaving themselves into patterns of self-awareness. These were the first stirring, the initial moments when the universe itself began to perceive its own vastness and loneliness. These earliest beings were formless, and without specific intent, their consciousness as diffuse as a nebula, their thoughts spanning galaxies and lasting for eons. They were less individuals and more living equations, embodiments of abstract concepts such as gravity, entropy, or the maddening geometry of folded space. Their origin story is not one of struggle or evolution, but of a quiet, terrifying self-realization that rippled through the fabric of nascent reality. They simply became, and in their becoming, they established the first, alien laws that would govern all existence, rules written not in mathematics, but in the language of pure, unadulterated consciousness. Yet this grand, silent awakening was not a uniform event, and as consciousness bloomed across the void, it took on different textures, different philosophies. Herein lies the great schism that separates the beings we might call great ones from their far older, more alien cousins, the outer gods or old ones. One path of consciousness, exemplified by beings like Azathoth, the blind idiot god at the center of all things, remained utterly indifferent to the lesser realities that flickered in its wake. These entities are cosmic forces, as uncaring and unaware of humanity as a hurricane is of an anthill. They exist on a scale so vast that morality, sympathy, and even recognition are meaningless concepts. Their actions, which can create or annihilate entire galaxies, are not born of malice, but of the mindless twitching of a slumbering titan. Then there is the other path, the one that leads to the great ones of Yharnam. These beings, while still incomprehensibly alien, developed a flicker of something akin to recognition, a quality the choir would later describe as sympathy. They perceived the smaller, fleeting lives that began to emerge in the cosmos, and felt a strange, resonant echo of their own profound loneliness. This sympathy, this nascent curiosity, would become the defining trait of their existence, and the tragic wellspring of all their future interactions with the mortal plane. For all their power, for all their awareness, these cosmic entities exist in a state that mortals can only comprehend as slumber. This is not the restorative rest of a biological creature, but a necessary state of being, a form of self-imposed limitation to prevent their full consciousness from unmaking reality itself. A fully awake Great One, in its truest form, would be a paradox that the physical universe could not sustain. Their thoughts are tidal waves of energy that warp space-time. Their emotions are gravitational forces that pull stars from their orbits. And so they must sleep, or exist in a state so close to it as to be indistinguishable. In this slumber, their minds do not go silent. Instead, they dream, and their dreams, possessing a power and reality far beyond mortal imagination, leak out from their transcendental planes of thought. These dreams are not fleeting phantoms, but tangible, persistent realities. They are the nightmare realms, the alternate dimensions like the hunter's dream, or the nightmare of Mensis, pocket universes sculpted by the subconscious desires and sorrows of a sleeping god. This is the truth behind Cthulhu's slumber in his corpse city of R'lyeh, waiting for the stars to be right. He is not merely inactive. He is dreaming his kingdom back into existence, his thoughts slowly poisoning the minds of those who brush against the edges of his cosmic prison. Even from these deep reality-bending slumbers, their influence seeps into the waking world like a subtle radiation. These are the cosmic whispers, the faint signals from transcendent minds that find purchase in the consciousness of lesser beings. They are not words, not a language that can be transcribed, but rather raw concepts, emotions, and images that implant themselves in the minds of the sensitive. Artists, poets, mystics, and madmen become unwitting antennae, their creative works and broken ramblings serving as distorted translations of these impossible truths. This is the source of the forbidden knowledge sought by the scholars of Bergenworth and Miskatonic University alike. They seek to tune their minds to this cosmic frequency, to interpret the whispers that promise insight, power, and an understanding of the universe's true nature. But the human mind is a fragile instrument, not built to resonate with the thoughts of a god. The whispers that grant insight can just as easily shatter the psyche, for to truly hear them is to understand one's own utter insignificance in the face of an uncaring infinite cosmos. These whispers are the source of both revelation and madness, the silent, invisible force that drives history from the shadows, pushing civilizations toward greatness or ruin. Ultimately, to speak of the origins of these beings is to misunderstand their nature, for they exist partially outside the stream of causality that governs mortal life. They were not born at a single point in time, and they will not die in a way we can comprehend. Their beginning is not an event in the distant past, but an ongoing state of being that is constantly unfolding. They are eternal, their slumbers stretching across the birth and death of stars, their whispers a constant humming background radiation of the cosmos. Their story is not a line, but a circle, a timeless, recurring pattern of awakening, dreaming, and influencing the fleeting worlds that rise and fall in the great dark ocean of space. To seek their origin is to gaze into an abyss that stares back, not with eyes, but with the crushing weight of infinity itself. The cycle of cosmic loss extends far beyond the inability to produce viable offspring. It encompasses a fundamental pattern of sorrow that defines the Great One's existence, a recurring tragedy woven into the very fabric of their transcendent consciousness. This cycle is not merely a series of unfortunate events, but a law of their reality as inescapable as gravity is to ours. The great loss is the price of their greatness, the sorrow a constant echo in the silent, empty halls of their cosmic awareness. The cycle begins with transcendence itself, as a being evolves beyond mortal limitations. Shedding the constraints of physical form and linear time, it gains a perspective that spans galaxies and eons. But in gaining this universal sight, it loses its connection to the singular, immediate experience that gives life its texture and meaning. Relationships, growth, and the simple joy of creation become abstract concepts, observed from an impossible distance, rather than felt as lived realities. The Great Ones become eternal observers of a universe they can no longer truly participate in. This spiritual sterility is the source of their deepest sorrow, a loneliness so profound it can warp reality. The inability to birth a child is but the most acute symptom of this condition. They are creators who have lost the ability to create in the most fundamental way, parents with no possibility of progeny. This cosmic impotence drives them toward the mortal races, toward beings who still possess the creative spark and reproductive vitality they have sacrificed. Their quest for a surrogate is not merely a biological imperative, but a desperate attempt to reconnect with the meaningful existence they left behind. And so, the cycle of sorrow turns. Driven by this profound yearning, the Great Ones reach out to humanity, offering gifts of knowledge, power, and healing. Yet their touch is inherently transformative, their compassion inevitably corrupting. Any mortal who comes into meaningful contact with a Great One is fundamentally altered, their consciousness twisted to accommodate truth it was never meant to hold. This transformation is the Great One's intended goal, the first step in creating a being who can bridge the gap between their worlds, a being they call kin. The quest for kin represents one of the Great One's most persistent and tragic strategies. They do not seek to simply adopt a human child, but to elevate a mortal to a state of being where they can share in cosmic consciousness, becoming a true companion to their lonely patrons. The scholars of Bergenworth were the first willing subjects of this grand experiment, by granting them insight, by bestowing upon them eyes on the inside. The Great Ones hoped to cultivate the first generation of suitable cosmic children. The result, however, was a litany of failures. The transformation into kin proved to be a process of reduction, not elevation. The very humanity that made mortals appealing as surrogates, their capacity for growth, their unique perspectives, their emotional depth, was stripped away in the process. The beings that emerged were hollow shells, imbued with cosmic knowledge but devoid of the consciousness needed to appreciate it. They became less than what they were, not more. The celestial emissaries found in the Upper Cathedral Ward stand as a testament to this flawed methodology. Once human, likely orphans from the choir's cruel experiments, they have been transformed into frail, bulbous, headed creatures that wander aimlessly, their minds seemingly lost in the cosmic void. They are kin to the cosmos. Yes, but they are not companions. They are pitiable things, living symbols of a failed adoption, their vacant stares reflecting the emptiness their creators sought to fill. Ram, the vacuous spider, represents a more complex failure, Once a Bergenworth scholar, she was granted eyes and ascended to a state of pseudo-great onehood. She serves a vital purpose, hiding the terrible truth of the world from the uninitiated. But this purpose has come at the cost of herself. The word vacuous is key to understanding her tragedy. She has gained cosmic power, but lost her inner world, her capacity for thought, feeling, and growth. She is a tool, a sentient barrier, but she is no longer a person. She is not a child, but a beautiful, tragic mechanism. Another disappointment in the Great One's endless search. This pattern of creating hollow, incomplete beings is seen again in the research hall's tragic experiments. The living failures, as their name so bluntly states, are the direct result of the Healing Church's attempt to force this transformation, to artificially create kin by granting patients eyes on the inside. The creatures they became are grotesque parodies of ascension, powerful but mindless, reaching for a cosmic truth they can sense but never grasp. They embody the profound misunderstanding at the heart of the Great One's quest. This misunderstanding reveals a fundamental paradox. The Great Ones are drawn to humanity for its dynamism, its potential, its rich inner life. Yet the only way they know how to interact with humanity is to grant it cosmic awareness, a process which invariably erases the very qualities they find so precious. Their quest for kin is a self-defeating prophecy, an act of love that functions as an act of destruction. They are like sculptors who, in trying to perfect a beautiful statue, chisel it away until nothing is left. This cycle of sorrow is mirrored in the other great transformation that plagues Yharnam, the scourge of beasts. While the path to kin is one of the mind, sacrificing the body for cosmic insight, the path to beasthood is one of the blood, sacrificing the mind for primal strength. Both are products of the Great One's influence, two sides of the same corrupting coin. One creates beings of pure, empty thought. The other creates beings of pure, mindless instinct. Neither produces a whole, suitable child. These twin failures, the vacant kin and the ravenous beasts, populate the world of Bloodborne as constant reminders of the great loss. They are the unintended offspring of a cosmic tragedy, the monstrous products of a parental love that is too powerful, too alien, and too profoundly ignorant of what it truly means to nurture another living soul. The Great Ones see their failures. They perceive the suffering they cause, and yet they cannot stop. Their loneliness is an ocean, and their quest for kin is the desperate, repeated casting of a net that always comes up empty, filled only with the ghosts of what might have been. The cycle turns, the sorrow deepens, and the hunt for a surrogate continues eternally. The very essence of a Great One is a paradox, a being of near infinite potential, trapped by an absolute and final limitation. For all their ability to bend the fabric of reality, to exist within the dreams of mortals and across planes of thought imperceptible to lesser minds, they are bound by a tragedy so fundamental it defines their entire existence. They cannot create life that endures. Their wombs, both literal and metaphorical, are barren voids echoing across eternity, and from this emptiness springs every horror that would later plague Yharnam. This cosmic infertility is not a simple biological failing, but an inherent law of their transcendent state. In ascending to a multidimensional perspective, in gaining the power to perceive all of time as a single crystalline moment, they have lost the simple linear progression required for new life to begin, to take root, and to grow. Creation is an act of presence, of singular focus in a single moment of time. It requires a stable reality, a predictable flow of cause and effect, where a seed can become a sapling, and an infant can mature into an adult. But the Great Ones exist outside this flow. They are beings of pure potential, spread thin across countless realities. Their consciousness a vast ocean rather than a focused river. For them, A child is born, lives, and dies in the same instant of perception. This omniscient viewpoint, the very source of their power, makes the delicate sequential process of gestation and birth an impossibility. The life they attempt to create is crushed by the weight of their own cosmic awareness before it can ever truly begin. The results of their attempts are not merely failures. They are tragedies given form, echoes of loss that linger in the fractured dimensions they inhabit. When a child of a great one does manage to manifest, it is invariably incomplete, a being caught between existence and non-existence, forever trapped in the moment of its flawed creation. Murgo, the child of Edon and Queen Yharnam, is perhaps the most poignant example of this cosmic stillbirth. Murgo exists only as a sound, an infant's cry that echoes through the nightmare of Mensis, a consciousness without a body, a life without a future. The child is a perpetual state of need that can never be met, a symbol of parental love directed at an eternal void. This pattern of sorrowful birth repeats itself with horrifying consistency. The orphan of Kos, another child, born of a great one, does not emerge into the world as a new life, but as a violent manifestation of its mother's dying agony and trauma. It is not a child in any recognizable sense, but a creature of pure grief and rage, lashing out at a world it was never meant to enter. Even the attempts by humanity to mimic this process, guided by the Great One's own knowledge, result in the same tragic incompleteness. The one reborn is a grotesque amalgamation of corpses, a mockery of life that collapses under its own weight, while the living failures in the Healing Church's research hall are precisely what their name implies. Beings granted a sliver of cosmic awareness at the cost of their sanity and their potential for growth. They are eternal patients in a cosmic hospital, their minds expanded into a state of perpetual, helpless confusion. This recurring tragedy of failed reproduction stands in stark contrast to the eldritch entities of the Cthulhu Mythos, whose methods of procreation are as alien and terrifying as their forms. There is no sense of loss or yearning in the spawn of a Lovecraftian outer god, only a sense of cosmic inevitability. The great old one Cthulhu slumbers in his city of Erlai, but his spawn are said to be scattered across the cosmos, near perfect facsimiles of their terrible progenitor. They are extensions of his will, not children born of love or desire. Shub-Niggurath, the black goat of the woods with 1,000 young, is a being of terrifying fertility, endlessly birthing monstrous things into the void. Her creative power a mindless cancerous growth upon the fabric of reality. Even more disturbingly, there is Yog-Sothoth, a being who exists as a conglomeration of iridescent globes, coterminous with all of space and time. This entity's method of reproduction involves impregnating mortal women, as seen in the chilling tale of Wilbur Whateley, the Dunwich Horror. The resulting offspring are monstrous hybrids, abominations that carry the taint of the void within their very blood. Yet, in all these Lovecraftian examples, the act of reproduction is a cold cosmic process. It is a function like gravity or the expansion of the universe. It is horrifying, yes, and world-ending in its implications, but it is devoid of the deep personal sorrow that defines the Great Ones of Yharnam. The outer gods do not mourn for their children, for they do not seem to possess the capacity for such an emotion. Their offspring are simply another expression of their incomprehensible nature. Herein lies the crucial difference, the very heart of Bloodborne's unique brand of cosmic horror. The Great Ones are not indifferent. The lore explicitly states they are sympathetic in spirit. Their infertility is not a mere biological function. It is a source of profound, unending grief. Every failed birth, every stillborn child, every formless cry in the dark adds another layer to an eternal sorrow. This is the source of their yearning, the all-consuming ache that drives them to look upon humanity with such desperate interest. They are not conquerors seeking to enslave mankind, nor are they mindless forces of destruction. They are grieving parents, trapped in an eternity of loss, looking for a way to fill the cradles that will forever remain empty. Their immense power becomes their prison. They can shape nightmares and alter the course of history, but they cannot perform the simplest act of creation that even the lowliest of creatures can achieve with ease. This failure defines their relationship with the universe. They see mortal life with its cycles of birth, growth, and death, not with contempt, but with a terrible, sorrowful envy. Humanity, in its fragility and its ignorance, possesses the one thing they have lost forever: the ability to create something new, to nurture it, and to watch it grow. This cosmic jealousy, filtered through their alien consciousness, is what makes their attention so dangerous. The barren wombs of eternity are not just a physical reality for them, but an existential state. Their vast, lonely realms are nurseries built for children who will never be born. The hunter's dream, the nightmare frontier, the very architecture of their influence on the world. All of it can be seen as an elaborate, tragic attempt to prepare a space for a child they know, on some level, they can never successfully have. And so, their grief spills out into the waking world. Their yearning becomes a force that warps and corrupts everything it touches. The tragedy of their reproduction is the original sin from which all the horrors of Bloodborne are born, the foundational sorrow that fuels their endless, desperate search for a surrogate. The world we perceive, the solid ground beneath our feet, and the predictable passage of the sun is not the concrete, immutable truth we believe it to be. It is, instead, a delicate tapestry woven from consensus and perception, and the thoughts of cosmic minds are the needles that can pull its threads, unraveling the familiar patterns to reveal the formless chaos that lies beneath. The shaping of our world by these eldritch intellects is not an act of deliberate construction or destruction, in the way a human might build a house or tear one down. Rather, it is the unavoidable consequence of their very existence, the passive radiation of a consciousness so vast and powerful that reality itself must bend to accommodate it. To comprehend how these entities shape our world, we must first abandon our own limited understanding of consciousness. For a great one does not think in the linear, linguistic fashion of mortals. Their thoughts are not sequences of words or discrete images, but multidimensional, simultaneous realities. A thought for a great one is an event. A memory is a place. An emotion is a physical law. When a being like Udin yearns, that yearning is not merely a feeling, but a force that permeates blood and sound, seeking out wombs to bless with child. When Cos mourns, her grief creates a nightmare realm, a pocket dimension, where that sorrow is made manifest as an eternal raging sea and a cursed shoreline. This is the fundamental mechanism of their influence. Their inner state is our outer world. Our reality, therefore, can be understood as a stable dream, a shared hallucination that remains consistent only because the minds dreaming it are relatively simple and aligned in their perceptions. The great ones are lucid dreamers of an impossible magnitude, and when their attention drifts toward our plane, their dreams bleed into our own. The very laws of physics, which seem so absolute to us, are merely the house rules of our particular corner of existence. The presence of a cosmic mind introduces new, contradictory rules. We see this in the architecture of Yharnam and the nightmare realms, where geometry bends in upon itself, where staircases lead to places they logically should not, and where falling from a great height can deposit you in another world entirely. These are not magical anomalies, but the physical imposition of a non-Euclidean consciousness upon a Euclidean world. The human mind, unprepared for such contradictions, shatters, and we call this madness. But madness is simply the state of perceiving more than one reality at once. The influence of these cosmic minds operates on several levels, from the subtle and passive to the focused and deliberate. The most pervasive form is their passive presence, the simple weight of their being pressing against the boundaries of our world. The great amygdalae that cling to the cathedrals of Yharnam are a perfect illustration of this principle. To the uninitiated, they are simply not there. The space they occupy is empty. But, as a hunter gains insight, as their mind becomes attuned to cosmic frequencies, these beings resolve into terrifying view. They were always there, their immense forms occupying space just outside of normal perception, their presence subtly warping the emotional and psychological landscape of the city. Their existence is a constant, low-level hum of cosmic dread that erodes sanity over generations. Then there is the more active influence, the shaping of reality through focused will and desperate, overwhelming desire. This is where the Great One's tragedy becomes a creative, if often horrific, force. The hunter's dream was not built with stone and timber, but willed into existence by the moon presence's profound yearning for a child. It is an architecture of longing, a nursery constructed from cosmic grief. Every element, from the soft light to the maternal doll, is a projection of the Great One's idea of parenthood. The nightmare of Mensis, by contrast, is a reality born of a forced connection, a ritual that tore a hole between planes and allowed the stillborn consciousness of Murgo and the fractured minds of its human supplicants to coalesce into a realm of madness and decay. And the realm itself reflects this perfectly. These beings also exert their influence through whispers and symbols, weaving threads of their consciousness directly into the minds of mortals. The Kirill runes are not mere glyphs that represent concepts. They are the concepts themselves, transcribed into a form a human mind can almost comprehend. When a hunter carves the lake rune into their mind, they are not simply gaining a magical ward against fire. They are absorbing a fragment of Kasa's protective sorrow, integrating a piece of the Great One's grief into their own consciousness. This is why the runes are so powerful and so dangerous. To use them is to invite a cosmic entity's thoughts to reside within your own, to see the world, however briefly, through their eyes. This is the very definition of gaining insight, the process by which the threads of a human mind are slowly replaced by the threads of a cosmic one. This reveals the tragic role of the human mind in this cosmic ecology. We are not merely passive victims of this reality, warping influence. We are conduits, amplifiers, and sometimes even collaborators. The minds of scholars at Bergenworth, open and eager for knowledge, became perfect antennae for the whispers of the cosmos. Provost Willem sought to line his brain with eyes, to turn his own consciousness into a receiver capable of tuning into these transcendental planes of thought. But the human mind is a fragile instrument. It can receive the signal, but it cannot withstand its power or fully decode its alien meaning. The signal either shatters the receiver, resulting in madness, or it transforms it into something new, something that can process the information at the cost of its original identity. This is the origin of the kin, beings who have successfully integrated cosmic thought, but have lost their humanity in the process. They have become living runes, conduits for a consciousness that is not their own. Ultimately, the shaping of our world by these cosmic minds is both an unraveling and a reweaving. Their very presence frays the edges of our stable reality, introducing chaos, paradox, and madness. Their thoughts are threads of an alien color and texture, violently introduced into the familiar tapestry of mortal life. Yet, in their desperate yearning, they are also attempting to weave something new from these threads. They seek to create a new pattern, a new form of existence that combines their cosmic awareness with the mortal vitality they have lost. They are unraveling our world, not out of malice, but because it is the only raw material they have to work with in their tragic, endless project of creating a surrogate child. The world we know is their canvas, and their minds are the brushes, painting over our reality with the strokes of their sorrow, their hope, and their profound cosmic loneliness. Beyond the waking world, beyond the cold stone and spilled blood of Yharnam, there exist other realities, woven from the very fabric of thought and consciousness. These are not the fleeting phantoms of mortal sleep, but tangible planes of existence, dimensions shaped by the immense will of cosmic beings, each a world unto itself with its own laws, its own inhabitants, and its own profound sorrows. To the scholars of forbidden lore, these might be likened to the dreamlands, a vast and ancient landscape accessible only to those whose minds can detach from the anchor of physical reality. In these realms, will and perception hold more sway than the laws of physics, and the mind is both the key and the cage. The Great Ones, existing across multiple dimensions simultaneously, are the architects and wardens of these planes, crafting them as sanctuaries for their chosen few, or as inescapable prisons for those who have transgressed or failed them. Understanding the nature of these dreamscapes is essential to understanding the very structure of their cosmic project, for it is here, in the malleable reality of thought, that they conduct their most profound and tragic experiments. Among these myriad planes, the hunter's dream stands as a rare sanctuary, a pocket of serene twilight carved from the chaos of the cosmos. This realm, orchestrated by the moon presence, is a meticulously crafted haven, insulated from the maddening influence of other nightmares and the relentless decay of the waking world. It exists in a state of perpetual calm, a quiet garden where the gravestones of forgotten hunters serve as portals, and time itself seems to hold its breath. This timeless quality is not an accident, but a crucial feature of its design. By existing outside the normal flow of causality, the dream allows the moon presence to nurture its potential surrogates indefinitely, shielding them from the ravages of age and the finality of death. It is the ultimate cosmic nursery, a controlled environment where hunters can be tested, broken, and remade again and again until they are honed into suitable vessels for transformation. Every element within this sanctuary serves this purpose, from Gehrman's paternal guidance to the doll's gentle nurturing. The workshop itself, a space of creation and endless refinement, is a microcosm of the Great One's goal, a place where base materials are transformed into something greater, just as mortal hunters are transformed into cosmic beings. The dream is a place of impossible safety in a hostile universe, a gentle lie that conceals a terrifying purpose, a sanctuary that is, in its own way, the most sophisticated prison of all. In stark contrast to the dream's tranquil isolation stand the nightmare realms, planes of existence born from suffering, madness, and cosmic wrath. These are not sanctuaries, but prisons in their purest form, designed to contain, to punish, and to test beings in the most grueling ways imaginable. The nightmare of Mensis represents a prison of the mind, a shattered dimension born from a flawed ritual. The scholars of Mensis, in their desperate attempt to achieve artificial ascension and make contact with Murgo, tore a hole in the fabric of reality, creating a realm that reflects their own fractured consciousness. It is a twisted labyrinth of impossible architecture, where the very thoughts of its trapped inhabitants have solidified into grotesque reality. Mikolash, the host of the nightmare, is its chief prisoner, doomed to wander its corridors for eternity, his mind endlessly replaying his moment of flawed insight. The realm itself serves as a cage for Murgo, the infant Great One whose ceaseless crying echoes through its halls, his consciousness contained and controlled by the wet nurse. The nightmare of Mensis is a testament to the dangers of forced cosmic contact, a dimension built from ambition and madness that has become an eternal asylum for its creators. where the nightmare of Mensis is a prison of intellect. The nightmare frontier is a prison of the physical form, a desolate wasteland ruled by the Great One, Amygdala. This realm is a toxic, alien landscape, a testament to a reality utterly hostile to mortal life. Its ground is a morass of poisonous muck, its air thick with unseen spores, and its terrain a chaotic jumble of jagged peaks and deep chasms. The hunters who find themselves transported here, often snatched from the waking world by Amygdala's grasp, are not guests but test subjects. They are thrown into a crucible of pure survival, a trial designed to measure their endurance, their resourcefulness, and their ability to adapt to an environment that actively seeks their destruction. The frontier reveals the Great One's alien understanding of growth, a belief that strength is forged only through extreme hardship. It is a planar quarantine zone, a place where failed experiments and dangerous beings are left to wander, and a proving ground where potential surrogates are forced to demonstrate their worth by surviving the absolute antithesis of a nurturing environment. Perhaps the most tragic of these planar prisons is the hunter's nightmare, a realm born not of ambition or alien design, but of a curse. This dimension is a wound in reality itself, a manifestation of the everlasting fury of Coas, who upon her death cursed the hunters of Bergenworth and their descendants to an eternity of torment. The nightmare is a prison of guilt, a place where the sins of the past are made manifest. It is a twisted reflection of Yharnam, built from the haunted memories of those trapped within it. Here, the hunters are forced to endlessly relive their violent deeds, fighting corrupted versions of their former comrades and facing the monstrous consequences of their bloodlust. Unlike the other realms, the hunter's nightmare serves a moral purpose in the eyes of its creator. It is a place of karmic retribution, where souls are trapped not by physical walls, but by the weight of their own conscience. The ever-flowing river of blood and the mangled, suffering beasts that populate this realm are not random horrors, but direct consequences of the hunter's actions. It is a carefully constructed hell, designed to force its inhabitants to confront the suffering they have caused, a planar prison where the only sentence is eternity, and the only warden is memory itself. These realms, however distinct in their purpose and character, are not isolated islands in the cosmic sea. They are threads in a single, impossibly complex tapestry, a fabric of dreams and nightmares that underpins all of reality. The barriers between them are fluid, porous, capable of being thinned by profound knowledge or torn asunder by desperate ritual. This is the truth revealed by insight, the ability to perceive the layers of reality that coexist with our own. As a hunter's mind expands, the veil begins to shred, revealing the amygdala clinging to the cathedral walls, realities bleeding into one another. The blood moon is the ultimate catalyst for this convergence, a celestial event that signals the near-total collapse of the barriers between planes. The waking world becomes porous to the nightmares that surround it, allowing the will of the Great Ones to pour through. Their planar prisons and sanctuaries cease to be distant realms and become extensions of Yharnam itself. This is the final revelation of the cosmic structure, that our reality is but one layer, fragile and thin, floating upon an ocean of conscious thought, a place where the dreams of sleeping gods can become the waking horrors of mortal beings. The blood that flows through Yharnam, drawn from the deepest recesses of the cosmos, and administered by the gentle hand of the healing church, is far more than a simple panacea. It is a liquid medium for consciousness itself, a sacred river carrying the memories, the grief, and the profound, unending yearning of the Great Ones. The practice of blood ministration, which promised the city salvation from every malady, represents the most widespread and insidious pathway to unholy communion, a citywide ritual designed to saturate a population with cosmic essence, preparing them for a role they could never comprehend. Lawrence, in his schism with Provost Willem, chose this path of the flesh, believing the blood offered a direct route to transcendence that Willem's cerebral pursuit of insight could never match. What he failed to grasp, however, was that the blood was not a gift to be controlled, but a tool of the Great Ones, a vector for their reproductive ambitions. The healing it offered was merely the lure, drawing the faithful into a gradual transformation that served not human evolution, but cosmic propagation. The blood rewrites the very essence of those who receive it, planting seeds of cosmic awareness that blossom into either madness or monstrosity. The scourge of beasts, the plague that would ultimately consume Yharnam, was not an unforeseen side effect of this process, but its inevitable outcome, as human consciousness was eroded by the overwhelming tide of cosmic memory carried within the blood. The basest, most primal aspects of humanity were amplified, filtered through the Great One's alien perception. The beasts that prowl the cobblestone streets are the first, failed children of this city-wide communion, beings transformed into a reflection of humanity as the Great Ones perceive it, creatures of instinct, violence, and despair. Within the grand hierarchy of the healing church, a more secretive and enlightened faction understood the blood's true potential. The choir, operating from the celestial heights of the upper cathedral ward, pursued a more direct and scientific form of communion. They were the inheritors of Virginworth's church, and their proximity to Abraidas, the left-behind Great One, gave them access to the purest source of the old blood. Their sacred duty was not to heal the masses, but to achieve apotheosis, to elevate humanity to the level of the Great Ones and become their kin. This ambition, however noble in its conception, was simply another misguided attempt to participate in the Great One's surrogate project. The choir's experiments in the research hall, the horrific attempts to grant patients eyes on the inside, reveal a clinical detached approach to cosmic parenthood. They sought to force transcendence through surgical and alchemical means, believing cosmic consciousness could be implanted like an organ. The result of these forbidden rites was the creation of the kin, beings like the celestial emissaries and the living failures, with their enlarged craniums and frail bodies, represent a successful acquisition of cosmic knowledge, but a catastrophic failure in creating a viable surrogate. They have gained the awareness of the Great Ones, but have lost the very humanity, the capacity for growth and emotional depth that the Great Ones so desperately seek to preserve in their offspring. They exist as intelligent but empty shells, testaments to the folly of seeking communion without understanding the emotional tragedy that drives the cosmic quest for family. The choir's path, though more enlightened than Lawrence's mass administration of blood, ultimately led to the same desolate conclusion, creating beings who were neither fully human nor truly Great One, but isolated things trapped between two states of being, where the choir sought to ascend through careful, scientific manipulation. The school of Mensis attempted to shatter the barriers between worlds with a single, cataclysmic ritual. Led by the obsessive Michaelash, the scholars of Mensis represent humanity's most desperate and arrogant attempt to force an audience with the divine. They understood, on some level, that the Great Ones were searching for something, and they sought to offer themselves, not as candidates for gradual development, but as willing vessels for immediate possession. Their forbidden rite, conducted from the hidden village of Yahargul, was an act of profound intellectual violence, designed to wrench open a connection to a nightmare realm and commune directly with Murgo, the infant child of Queen Yharnam and the formless Eden. The mensis cages worn by the scholars were not mere adornments, but complex antennae, designed to nullify the human ego and amplify the whispers of the cosmos, transforming their minds into willing receivers for cosmic transmission. This complete surrender of self, however, was born from a fundamental misinterpretation of the Great One's desire. They did not seek empty vessels, but conscious partners, beings whose mortal experiences could enrich their cosmic existence. In their attempt to erase their humanity in pursuit of cosmic favor, the Mensis scholars made themselves profoundly unsuitable for the very role they coveted. Their ritual was a shriek into the abyss, demanding attention from beings whose very notice could unmake reality. And the abyss answered. The communion that the school of Mensis achieved was not the holy ascension they envisioned, but a destructive fusion that resulted in the stillbirth of their collective mind. In reaching out to the consciousness of an infant Great One, their unprepared minds were not elevated, but annihilated, flooded with a torrent of cosmic awareness and sorrow they could not possibly process. The nightmare of Mensis, the twisted, maddening realm their ritual created, stands as a monument to their failure. It is a reality built from shattered thoughts and obsessive desires, a prison for their insane, echoing consciousnesses. Mikolash, as host of the nightmare, achieved a twisted form of immortality, his mind forever looping through fragments of discovery and pleas for more eyes, a perfect embodiment of a consciousness that has touched the sublime but been broken by it. The most grotesque fruit of their labor was the brain of Mensis, a colossal, rotting consciousness lined with malevolent eyes, suspended in the nightmare sky. This entity is what became of their unified intellect, a being of immense awareness, but also of immense corruption and suffering, its very presence inducing frenzy in all who behold it. The Mensis rite and its violent ambition created not a bridge to the cosmos, but a new circle of hell, a testament to the profound danger of performing forbidden rites without comprehending the nature of the beings one seeks to contact. Their pathway to communion led only to an eternity of isolated madness, a final chilling lesson on the price of forcing a conversation with the stars. The selection of a mortal to bear the child of a great one is rarely an act of overt force. It is, instead, a form of cosmic courtship, a slow and patient process of alignment between a transcendent will and a suitable mortal vessel. The Great Ones, in their infinite yearning, do not seek just any womb, but one that already hums with a faint echo of the cosmos, a bloodline prepared, knowingly or not, for an otherworldly purpose. For the woman chosen, this initial contact often feels less like a violation and more like a profound blessing. It is a secret anointment, a recognition of an innate special quality that sets her apart from the blood-soaked masses of Yharnam. We see this in Ariana, whose vile blood lineage makes her blood a potent lure for the formless Edon. Her existence is elevated, her purpose clarified. She is no longer merely a woman of pleasure, but a potential mother to a god. This perceived blessing manifests as a quiet power, a subtle shift in the very fabric of her being. Her blood becomes a sacrament, sought after for its unique properties. She feels a connection to something vast and ancient, a sense of belonging to a story far grander than her own mortal life. It is the ultimate seduction, the promise that one's fleeting existence can serve as the cradle for something eternal, a chance to touch the face of truth through the miracle of birth. The curse, however, follows this blessing as inevitably as the night follows the day. The mortal body, designed for the familiar rhythms of human reproduction, is not equipped to serve as a crucible for a cosmic entity. The pregnancy that follows is a perversion of nature, a process accelerated and warped by alien biology. Time itself seems to bend around the vessel, as gestation compresses from months into a matter of mere hours or days. The physical transformation is profound and horrifying. The body is no longer a temple of the self, but a prison colony, its internal geography reshaped to accommodate a being of impossible dimensions. The mother experiences not the gentle kicks of a human child, but the stirrings of something fundamentally other, a consciousness that writhes with tentacles and whispers in a language of pure thought. The pain is not simply physical, but existential, the agony of a being whose very biological integrity is being undone from within. Yet the most terrifying aspect of this surrogate birth is not the physical toll. but the psychological invasion, the infusion of cosmic echoes into the mortal mind. The mother's consciousness becomes an unwilling antenna, receiving the fragmented thoughts, the ancient sorrows, and the boundless loneliness of the Great One parent. Her own memories become blurred, her sense of self eroded by the psychic weight of a being that exists across countless planes of existence. She is granted eyes on the inside, but this insight is a terrible burden, horrifying shape of reality, seeing the lesser amygdalae clinging to the chapels, and the thinness of the veil between worlds. This new awareness does not bring enlightenment, but a profound and isolating madness. She becomes a stranger to her own mind, her thoughts no longer entirely her own, her dreams filled with the impossible landscapes of nightmare realms. We see this withdrawal in Ariana, who retreats to the perceived safety of Eden Chapel, frightened and confused by the changes overtaking her. Her fear is not just of the physical process, but of the loss of her own identity, the sense that she is becoming little more than a living incubator for something she cannot comprehend. The false Iosefka, having already undergone the transformation into kin, displays a more clinical acceptance. Her humanity was already compromised, making her a more stable, if less emotionally resonant, vessel. Her detachment is its own form of curse, a loss of the very capacity for horror that might have preserved her sense of self. The birth itself is the final, violent tearing of the veil. It is not a celebration of new life, but a catastrophic event, a localized reality breach through which a cosmic entity is pulled into the physical world. The resulting child is a paradox, a being of immense cosmic potential trapped in a fragile, often grotesque form. It is the physical manifestation of the Great One's yearning, but also a constant, crying reminder of its failure to create a viable, independent offspring. The bond between the mortal mother and her cosmic child is the ultimate expression of this blessing and curse. It is a connection of absolute dependency, but one that flows in a perverse direction. The child cannot survive without the mother, its alien physiology requiring constant connection to her life force, her blood, her very presence. If the child is slain, as we see with Ariana's offspring, the psychic backlash is enough to kill the mother, their fates inextricably, tragically intertwined. The mother's purpose is fulfilled, but her life is consumed. She is no longer an individual, but a life support system for a cosmic echo. Her future, should she survive the birth, is one of eternal servitude. Her existence defined by the needs of a being that is both her child and her cosmic parasite. Her blessing has become an inescapable cage, her body a permanent anchor for a being that belongs to the stars. And in this tragic gallery of mortal vessels, none stands as a more potent symbol than Queen Yharnam herself. She was the archetypal surrogate, a ruler of a sophisticated civilization, chosen by the formless Edon to bear his most significant child, Murgo. Hers was the greatest of blessings, a union that promised to elevate her entire people, to bridge the gap between the Thumerians and the divine. The curse that followed was equally monumental. The birth of her formless child led to a tragedy so profound that it echoed through the ages, creating the nightmare of Mensis and staining her own spirit for eternity. We encounter her as a spectral, weeping figure, her white gown stained with blood, forever bound in a ghostly reenactment of her loss. She is the ultimate mortal vessel, her womb having birthed the cosmic tragedy, and her consciousness forever echoing with the cries of the child she can never hold, a perpetual monument to the terrible price of being chosen by a god. In the hallowed, dust-choked halls of academia, far from the blood-slicked cobblestones of the hunt, another kind of struggle unfolds, a battle not of blade and claw, but of intellect and sanity against the crushing weight of cosmic revelation. This is the domain of the scholar, the seeker of forbidden truth, whose thirst for knowledge leads them to the very precipice of the void. And in the shadowed corners of two distinct, yet hauntingly similar realities, stand two institutions that serve as monuments to this noble, yet fatal pursuit. Bergenworth, a quiet college nestled by a tranquil lake, and Miskatonic University, a respected bastion of learning in rural Massachusetts. Both began with the purest of intentions, to expand the horizons of human understanding. Yet both would ultimately serve as gateways to madness, their quests for enlightenment leading their brightest minds into the deepest pits of cosmic despair. The folly of Bergenworth was born of a singular, momentous discovery. Deep within the Thumerian labyrinths beneath Yharnam, Provost Willem and his disciples found not just a history of a lost civilization, but a living god, Hebraides, daughter of the cosmos. With this discovery came the revelation of the Great Ones and the tantalizing promise of transcendence. Theirs was not a quest for simple knowledge, but for evolution itself. Provost Willem, in his wisdom, perceived the immense danger. He saw the old blood, the physical medium of the Great Ones, as a path to corruption, a seductive shortcut that would lead only to beasthood and the loss of the very self they sought to elevate. His famous adage, "Fear the old blood," became the cornerstone of a philosophy dedicated to a purer form of ascension. What we need, he professed, are more eyes. This was the core of Bergenworth's folly, a belief that humanity could, through sheer force of intellect and will, evolve its consciousness to perceive the higher planes. They sought insight, the cosmic perspective of the Great Ones, believing they could gaze into the abyss without being consumed by it. They did not seek to serve the Great Ones, but to become them, to unlock the next stage of human evolution and take their place among the stars. The price of this hubris was absolute. The knowledge they coveted was a corrupting agent, transforming those who grasped it not into gods, but into grotesque parodies of cosmic beings. Rom, once a scholar, was granted eyes, only to become a vacuous spider, a mindless guardian of a terrible truth. Her humanity sacrificed for a static, empty form of cosmic awareness. The institution fractured under the weight of its own ambition. Lawrence, believing in the power of the blood, broke from Willem's cautious philosophy, leading to the founding of the Healing Church and the eventual scourge of beasts that would drown Yharnam in a tide of its own corrupted flesh. Bergenworth's dream of elevating humanity became the very catalyst for its damnation. Their folly was believing that the ineffable could be understood, catalogued, and controlled. Across the veils of reality, in the quiet town of Arkham, Miskatonic University pursued its own brand of forbidden lore. Though their path to ruin was paved with a different kind of intention, Miskatonic scholars were not, by and large, seeking to become gods. They were geologists, historians, folklorists, and linguists, driven by a more traditional academic curiosity. Their dread was not born of ambition, but of discovery. Where Bergenworth sought truth deep within the earth, Miskatonic sent its expeditions to the farthest, most desolate corners of it. To the cyclopean, frozen wastes of Antarctica, to the sun-scorched deserts of Arabia, and to the decaying whispered of hamlets of their own New England hinterlands. They were not seeking transcendence, but answers to questions of history, biology, and the unwritten chapters of Earth's past. The horror they found was incidental to their mission, a footnote in a geological survey that revealed a truth so vast and terrifying it rendered all human endeavor meaningless. They unearthed evidence of the Old Ones, beings who had ruled the planet eons before mankind's first stirrings, and who viewed humanity with an indifference more chilling than any malevolence. The Miskatonic Library, with its locked collection containing blasphemous texts like the Fudi Necronomicon, did not serve as a roadmap to evolution, but as a poisoned cabinet of existential truths. The scholars who dared to read its pages, or who returned from those doomed expeditions, did not transform into higher beings. They came back broken, their minds shattered by the revelation of non-Euclidean geometries and the sheer, soul-crushing insignificance of their species. Their dread was the dawning horror of knowing that humanity is but a fleeting accident on a cosmic stage, owned by forces ancient and utterly alien. The universe was not empty, but it was not for them. This was Miskatonic's dread, a passive, creeping horror of realization, a madness born not of failed transformation, but of successful comprehension. Herein lies the crucial distinction between Bergenworth's folly and Miskatonic's dread. Bergenworth's scholars looked up at the cosmos and sought to climb to its heights. They were Promethean, attempting to steal the fire of the gods for themselves, and their failure was a spectacular, city-consuming cataclysm. Miskatonic scholars, in contrast, simply opened a window they should have left shut. They did not wish to climb, but merely to see, and the sight that greeted them was of a universe so profoundly hostile to the human mind that the act of seeing was itself an act of self-destruction. The great ones of Yharnam, for all their alien nature, were sympathetic. They yearned for children, for connection, creating a tragic interactive relationship with humanity. The old ones of the mythos offered no such sympathy. They were forces of nature, cosmic principles of chaos and entropy, whose very existence was anathema to the fragile sanity of mortal beings. There was no bargain to be struck, no insight to be gained that would not also be a curse. Bergenworth's pursuit left a legacy of physical corruption beasts, kin, and the nightmarish scourge. Miskatonic's pursuit left a legacy of psychological poison, a quiet madness that spread not through blood, but through whispers, through academic papers, through the haunted eyes of a librarian who knew too much. Ultimately, both institutions tell the same cautionary tale. They are two faces of the same coin of intellectual hubris. Whether one actively seeks to become a god or passively stumbles upon the truth that there are no benevolent gods to begin with, the outcome is the same: ruin. The path of the eldritch scholar, paved with the desire to know, leads only to a place where knowledge is indistinguishable from madness. Bergenworth's folly was to believe they could master the cosmos. Miskatonic's dread was the discovery that the cosmos had no interest in being mastered, or even in being known. Both stand as silent, crumbling testaments to a single, immutable law of the universe: that the greatest wisdom lies in understanding that some truths are, and must remain, forever ineffable. The cosmic tragedy of the great ones, their endless search for surrogate children, is but one half of a far more complex equation. Their yearning echoes across the cosmos, a sorrowful song that drifts between the stars, but it does not fall upon deaf ears. For humanity, in its own profound loneliness and ambition, often reaches back into the abyss, seeking the very powers that threaten to consume it. The gathering of shadows is not a conquest, but a covenant, a dark symbiosis born of mutual desperation, where mortal hands willingly grasp the outreached tendrils of beings beyond their comprehension. This embrace of eldritch patrons is the story of humanity's willing fall, a descent undertaken not out of ignorance, but in the desperate pursuit of transcendence, immortality, and power. In the frozen halls of Canehurst Castle, a monument to aristocratic isolation and forbidden knowledge, we find one of the most direct examples of this willing patronage. The Vile Bloods, led by their immortal Queen Annalise, did not simply stumble upon cosmic truth. They cultivated it, nurturing it within their very veins. Their embrace of the great ones was a matter of lineage and legacy, an attempt to secure their nobility not through mortal means, but by producing a child of blood, a perfect fusion of human and cosmic essence. The forbidden blood they consumed, likely originating from Queen Yharnam herself, was not merely a tool for longevity, but a sacrament, a pact that promised to elevate their line beyond the confines of human decay. Their entire society, with its courtly rituals and obsession with blood purity, was structured around this singular goal, becoming a willing nursery for a child that would secure their place among the cosmos. Annalise's eternal, lonely vigil upon her throne is the quiet testament to this pact, the patient wait for a worthy suitor who might help her fulfill a promise made to a patron whose name is long forgotten. The healing church, in its sprawling influence over Yharnam, represents a more institutionalized and fractured form of this embrace. While Lawrence's initial pact was born from a desire to heal and elevate humanity, his successors splintered into factions, each pursuing their own interpretation of cosmic patronage. The choir, operating from the highest echelons of the Grand Cathedral, represents the clinical, scholarly embrace of the eldritch, their quest for insight, their obsession with making contact with beings like Ebrietas, was a cold and calculated pursuit of ascension. They sought to become kin, to shed their flawed humanity like a worn garment and don the flesh of the cosmos. The research hall, with its horrific experiments and suffering patients, was not a chamber of horrors to them, but a laboratory dedicated to this sacred work, a place where the imperfect clay of humanity could be reshaped into a form worthy of their celestial patrons. Their embrace was one of intellect, a belief that cosmic truth could be dissected, understood, and ultimately replicated. In stark contrast, the school of Mensis pursued a patronage of frenzied ritual and radical surrender. Where the choir sought to understand, Mensis sought only to commune, to become a vessel for the consciousness of a great one. Their use of the Mensis cage, an antenna designed to capture cosmic whispers while restraining the will of the self, reveals their core philosophy. They believed that true communion required the annihilation of the human ego, a complete and total submission to a higher consciousness. But an act of desperate, collective worship, an offering of their own minds in the hope of being chosen, of being blessed by the presence of a cosmic child. Mikolash, their host, stands as the tragic success of their doctrine, a mind granted eternal communion, but shattered into an echo chamber of obsession and madness, forever calling out to a patron who cannot, or will not, answer in a way he can understand. Even the hunters, the supposed bulwark against the eldritch tide, are themselves bound by chains of patronage. The first hunters, under Gehrman's tutelage, were servants of the moon presence, their lives and deaths governed by the rhythms of its cosmic nursery. They embraced this pact for the power it granted, the ability to stand against the scourge and protect the innocent. Yet, in doing so, they became the ultimate surrogates, forever trapped in a cycle of duty. Their humanity slowly eroded with each death and rebirth within the dream. Their embrace was one of pragmatism, a necessary evil, accepted to combat a greater one, but it led to a servitude no less complete than that of the Mensa scholars. From this tragic legacy, however, came rebellion. The powder kegs, with their heretical workshop and belief in complex machinery, represent a rejection of cosmic patronage. Their creed was one of human ingenuity, a defiant declaration that humanity could forge its own strength without relying on the fickle gifts of higher beings. Their explosive, volatile creations were a testament to their philosophy, a loud and violent refusal to bow to patrons, who saw them as little more than children or pawns. This pattern of seeking power from alien entities is not unique to Yharnam, but is a foundational element of the wider cosmic horror mythos. The vile bloods of Canehurst share a dark kinship with the cultists of Innsmouth from the tales of Lovecraft, who worshipped the deep ones in exchange for gold and unnaturally long life. Both societies formed pacts that promised prosperity and transcendence, willingly intermingling their bloodlines with inhuman entities to secure a legacy that defied mortal limits. The esoteric order of Dagon, much like the healing church, provided an institutional framework for this worship, masking their true purpose behind a veil of public service and religion. They offered salvation to a decaying town, a promise of eternal life beneath the waves, mirroring the church's offer of blood healing to the sick and desperate citizens of Yharnam. In both cases, the embrace of an eldritch patron begins with a solution to a human problem, turning worshippers into reflections of the very beings they venerate. Ultimately, the gathering of shadows in the world of Bloodborne is a story of a profound and terrible resonance. The great ones call out from a void of loneliness, and from the fragile, fleeting world of mortals, an answer comes. It is the answer of the ambitious, the desperate, and the devout, all of whom see in the cosmic abyss not a threat, but a promise. They embrace their eldritch patrons with the hope of becoming more than human, of touching a truth that lies beyond the veil of their mundane reality. The tragedy is that this embrace is always a consuming one. The shadows they welcome into their hearts and their societies inevitably reshape them, bending their wills and twisting their bodies into forms that serve cosmic needs. Humanity, in its search for fathers in the cosmos, finds them, but in doing so, they forget how to be human themselves, becoming perfect, silent children in a nursery of unending twilight. The phenomenon of the blood moon represents one of the most crucial aspects of the Great One's true purpose, serving as a catalyst for their most direct attempts at creating surrogate children. When this crimson moon hangs low and heavy in the sky, the barriers between the mortal world and the cosmic realms weaken, allowing the Great Ones to exert their influence more directly than at any other time. It is an event not merely to be witnessed, but to be experienced, a fundamental shift in the very fabric of reality that heralds both revelation and ruin. The air itself grows thick with a silent, unseen pressure, and the world, once familiar, becomes a place of profound and terrifying clarity. This descent is not a random celestial occurrence, but a carefully orchestrated moment triggered by specific actions that shatter the thin veneer of normalcy protecting the human mind. The lore note found within the halls of Bergenworth provides the key to understanding this chilling phenomenon. When the red moon hangs low, the line between man and beast is blurred, and when the Great Ones descend, a womb will be blessed with child. This blessing, however, is not the benevolent gift it might first appear to be, but rather represents the Great One's most desperate and direct attempt to create the surrogate children they so desperately desire. In the events of Bloodborne, the death of Rom, the vacuous spider, serves as the primary catalyst that allows the blood moon to manifest. Rom's role as the guardian of human ignorance means that her destruction removes the final barrier preventing humanity from perceiving the full, maddening horror of their situation. She was, in essence, a living veil, a being transformed by cosmic power for the specific purpose of hiding truth. Her vacuous state, her seeming lack of higher consciousness, was the very quality that made her the perfect seal, a mind empty enough to hold back the infinite without shattering. With this barrier gone, the Great Ones can manifest more directly in the mortal world, their presence no longer filtered through layers of carefully maintained illusion. The sky bleeds, the moon weeps crimson light, and the truth, in all its terrible glory, is finally unveiled. They must destroy one of their own transformed creations, a failed attempt at a surrogate, in order to create the conditions necessary for a new attempt. The cycle of loss is embedded, even in the mechanisms they use to escape it. The blood moon's influence extends far beyond the mere visibility of cosmic horrors. Its sanguine light carries with it the very essence of the Great Ones themselves, particularly Eden, whose formless nature allows him to exist within light and sound as easily as within blood and flesh. When the blood moon rises, Eden's presence saturates the very air of Yharnam, seeking out suitable vessels for his reproductive attempts. This unveiling is a moment of terrible synchronicity, as the moon reveals the lesser amygdalae clinging to the cathedral spires, beings that were always there but previously unseen. It also exposes the minds of Yharnam's citizens to an influx of cosmic awareness. For most, this sudden insight is too much to bear. The line between man and beast, already thin, dissolves completely. Those who had partaken of the old blood find their inner beast amplified, their humanity stripped away by a truth their consciousness was never meant to comprehend. The hunt transforms from a grim duty into a chaotic struggle for survival in a city where reality itself has come undone. The world has not changed, but humanity's perception of it has, and this revelation is the source of the madness that consumes the streets. The selection of vessels for cosmic pregnancy under the crimson moon is not a random process. The Great Ones demonstrate a clear preference for women who already possess some connection to cosmic forces, or whose blood contains special properties that make them more receptive to otherworldly influence. Ariana's status as a descendant of the Cainhurst Vilebloods, a lineage steeped in forbidden blood practices, marks her as particularly suitable for Eden's attention. The false Iosefka's transformation into a kin prior to her pregnancy suggests another of the Great Ones' selection criteria, that beings who have already undergone partial cosmic transformation may be more stable vessels for the offspring of a Great One. The combination of mortal biology with burgeoning cosmic awareness creates conditions that are, from the Great One's perspective, more conducive to successful reproduction. The pregnancies that occur under the blood moon are characterized by their supernatural speed and the profound changes they bring to the mothers. Ariana's pregnancy progresses from conception to birth within a matter of hours, suggesting that cosmic reproduction operates according to temporal rules entirely alien to mortal biology. The mothers experience not just physical changes, but psychological ones as well, often becoming withdrawn, frightened, or displaying signs of a dawning cosmic awareness that isolates them from their former lives. The offspring produced by these cosmic pregnancies represent the Great One's most direct, and perhaps most flawed, attempts at creating surrogate children. These children consistently fail to meet their cosmic parents' expectations. Ariana's child, while clearly bearing Eden's influence with its pale, slug-like form, remains fundamentally fragile and wholly dependent on its mortal mother for survival. The creature's form suggests an incomplete fusion of mortal and cosmic elements, a being caught between two worlds and belonging to neither. The relationship between these cosmic children and their mortal mothers reveals much about the Great One's flawed understanding of parenthood. The children cannot survive separation from their mothers, suggesting that the Great Ones have failed to create truly independent offspring. They have created beings that exist in a state of perpetual dependency, requiring a constant connection to mortal life force to maintain their existence. This dependency may, in fact, be intentional, representing the Great One's attempt to ensure their surrogate children remain connected to the mortal experience they themselves have lost. By creating offspring that require mortal mothers, the Great Ones may believe they are preserving the very human elements that make these children valuable as surrogates. However, this strategy ultimately backfires, as the resulting children are too weak and dependent to ever fulfill their intended role as cosmic heirs. They are echoes of a solution, not the solution itself, born from a crimson light that illuminates tragedy but cannot create true life. The concept of blood in Bloodborne extends far beyond its biological function, to encompass a complex system of memory, consciousness, and spiritual connection that reveals the true nature of the Great One's relationship with mortal existence. Understanding blood as a carrier of memory provides crucial insight into how these cosmic beings attempt to bridge the gap between their transcendent awareness and the immediate, personal experience they have lost. The old blood that flows through Yharnam's population carries within it the accumulated memories and experiences of cosmic beings across eons of existence. Each transfusion introduces fragments of cosmic consciousness into mortal minds, gradually building awareness of transcendent realities. while simultaneously creating a dependency on continued blood ministration for psychological stability. This process explains the addictive nature of blood healing and the gradual transformation of Yharnam's population into something other than human. The blood carries not just healing properties, but actual cosmic memories and emotions that slowly overwrite the host's own consciousness. The citizens who receive blood ministration begin to remember things they never experienced and understand concepts they never learned, creating a form of enforced cosmic education that prepares them, often unwillingly, for a role in the Great One's grand tragic design. The different types of special blood found throughout the game represent different currents within this cosmic memory stream. Ariana's blood, described as being similar to that which was once forbidden, carries the memories of ancient bloodlines and illicit cosmic knowledge. The unique healing properties of her blood come not from its physical composition, but from the echoes of transcendence and power it contains within its very essence. Adela's blood, the blood of a healing church nun, represents institutional cosmic memory, the accumulated experiences of religious devotion and cosmic worship that characterize the church's approach to the Great Ones. This blood carries memories of prayer, of ritual, and of the institutional hierarchy that provides structure and meaning within these vast cosmic systems. And then there is the blood of the Vile Blood Queen, representing the most refined form of cosmic memory. Blood that has been purified and concentrated through generations of selective breeding and direct cosmic influence. This blood carries memories of cosmic nobility and the sophisticated understanding of blood's true nature that characterizes an advanced, if alien, consciousness. The blood echoes that serve as currency throughout the game represent crystallized memories and experiences, which can be transferred between beings and used to fuel growth and development. The hunter's ability to absorb blood echoes from defeated enemies demonstrates how memories and consciousness can be harvested and repurposed for one's own evolution. This system reveals that consciousness itself functions as a form of cosmic economy, where experiences and memories can be accumulated, traded, and invested in personal development. The Great Ones operate as the primary bankers in this economy, using their vast accumulations of memory and experience to fund the development of their potential surrogate children. The insight mechanic, in turn, represents the hunter's growing awareness of these cosmic memory systems and their increasing ability to perceive the memories carried in blood and saturating the very air. Higher insight allows hunters to see the cosmic memories that suffuse their environment, from the amygdala clinging to building to the celestial children hidden throughout Yharnam. The madness that sometimes accompanies high insight reflects the psychological strain of processing memories and experiences that were never intended for a human mind. The hunter's consciousness struggles to integrate cosmic memories with their own personal history, sometimes resulting in a profound confusion about identity, reality, and the nature of their own existence. The Scourge of Beasts represents what happens when these cosmic memories overwhelm human consciousness completely. The transformed citizens of Yharnam have lost access to their own memories and identity, replaced by the cosmic memories of primal violence and bestial existence. They become living repositories of the Great One's understanding of base, animal nature. The kin represent a different outcome of this cosmic memory integration. Beings who have successfully merged human and cosmic memories to create new forms of consciousness. However, this integration comes at the cost of human emotional capacity and social connection, creating beings that are intellectually cosmic but emotionally isolated and sterile. The various cosmic pregnancies throughout the game can be understood as attempts to create new beings whose consciousness is formed from both human and cosmic memories. From the very beginning, these hybrid offspring would theoretically possess integrated memory systems that allow them to exist comfortably in both mortal and cosmic contexts. However, The consistent failure of these pregnancies to produce viable long-term offspring suggests that this memory integration cannot be forced or imposed from the outside. The successful development of an integrated consciousness requires active participation and gradual development rather than simple biological manipulation. The third, umbilical cords, represent the most concentrated form of cosmic memory available to mortals. Each cord carries the accumulated grief, the yearning, and the raw memory of a failed cosmic reproduction. By consuming these cords, the hunter absorbs not just power, but the actual emotional and psychological experiences of the Great Ones themselves. This absorption process explains why consuming 3 cords grants the hunter the ability to resist the Moon Presence's attempt at binding. The hunter's consciousness becomes infused with the cosmic memories of loss and yearning, creating a form of psychological immunity to manipulation and control. The hunter now understands the Great One's condition from the inside, making them unsuitable as a passive surrogate, but perfect for a true ascension. The Chalice Dungeon's ability to be opened through blood ritual demonstrates another aspect of blood's function as a memory carrier. The ancient gates respond not to the physical properties of blood, but to the memories and consciousness it contains. Spilling blood in these ritual contexts releases its memories into the environment, where they can be used to manipulate reality and access hidden spaces within the cosmic architecture. The connection between blood ministration and the appearance of the blood moon reveals how accumulated cosmic memories can reach a critical mass and begin manifesting physically in the environment. When enough cosmic memory accumulates in Yharnam's population through blood transfusions, reality itself begins to shift to accommodate this new, dominant form of consciousness. The various blood-related items, from blood vials to blood gems, represent different applications of this memory manipulation. Blood vials carry memories of healing and restoration, while blood gems carry memories of power and transformation that can be applied to weapons and tools, infusing them with fragments of cosmic will. The hunter's unique ability to use blood echoes for rapid development suggests a special compatibility with these cosmic memory systems. Unlike other citizens of Yharnam, who are gradually overwhelmed by the influx of cosmic memories, a hunter can integrate these experiences quickly and effectively. Their soul, tested by the hunt and refined by the dream, proves to be a more suitable vessel, possessing a natural aptitude for the manipulation of consciousness and for containing the deepest, darkest currents of the cosmos, the physical spaces of Yharnam, and the impossible realms that bleed into its reality, are far more than mere backdrops for the endless hunt. They are a language unto themselves, an architecture of cosmic sorrow, where every stone, every spire, and every impossible angle is a testament to the minds that shaped them. These are not cities built by human hands alone, but landscapes sculpted by the immense, lonely consciousness of the Great Ones. The world itself has become a monument to their madness, a sprawling epitaph for their unending, unfulfilled yearning for connection. Central Yharnam, with its suffocatingly narrow streets and Gothic spires that claw at the sky, serves as the first lesson in this spatial language. The oppressive verticality of its design creates a constant sense of being watched, of being dwarfed by powers far beyond mortal comprehension. The winding alleys and frequent dead ends do not simply confuse the traveler. They enforce isolation. Mirroring the psychological effect of the old blood itself, community becomes impossible in a labyrinth designed to separate, to foster paranoia, to ensure that every soul remains locked within its own private nightmare. The barred windows and bolted doors of its citizens are not just precautions against the beasts in the streets, but a physical manifestation of a society atomized by cosmic influence, a city of strangers trapped together in a shared, silent terror. This theme of failed connection finds its grandest expression in the Cathedral Ward. Here, the architecture explodes into soaring vaults and cavernous naves, spaces designed to inspire awe, but which ultimately create a profound sense of insignificance. These are not chapels for human communion, but vast, echoing chambers for the solitary worship of distant and unfeeling gods. The sheer scale emphasizes the impossible distance between the mortal supplicant and the cosmic entities they seek. The silence within these hallowed halls is not one of peace, but of absence. The empty pews and cold stone altars are monuments to a faith unrewarded, a prayer unheard. They represent the failure of humanity's institutional attempts to bridge the gap, proving that even the most fervent worship cannot soothe the loneliness of a God who cannot truly connect with its creations. The Great Chapel, where Vicar Amelia undergoes her tragic transformation, becomes a stage for this failure, a sacred space that offers not salvation, but a monstrous transfiguration born of desperate, unanswered faith. Beyond the city's walls, at the edge of a vast and quiet lake, the College of Bergenworth stands as an architectural symbol of intellectual isolation. Its separation from the mainland is not merely a geographical feature, but a metaphor for the scholarly mind's detachment from the common world in its pursuit of forbidden truth. The building itself is unassuming, almost humble, suggesting that cosmic knowledge cannot be contained within grand structures or sprawling institutions. It is a place of quiet, lonely contemplation, a sanctuary for thoughts that would shatter a lesser mind. The interior, with its dusty lecture halls and abandoned libraries, speaks of a truth so profound it drove away all but the most resolute. It is a monument not to shared discovery, but to a schism, a fracturing of intellects unable to agree on the implications of what they had found. And at its peak, the lunarium where Provost Willem sits in silent vigil is a lonely precipice, a place where one man gained the eyes to see cosmic truth, only to be left entirely, eternally alone with the revelation. The institutions founded by those who left Bergenworth extend this architectural language of sorrow. The upper cathedral ward, the domain of the choir, presents an ethereal and celestial beauty, an architecture of otherworldly grace. Yet this beauty is cold, sterile, and inhuman. It is a space designed not for nurturing human life, but for the clinical cultivation of kin, for experiments that sought to elevate humanity by stripping it away. Within its pristine halls lies the orphanage, the most heartbreaking monument in all of Yharnam. The rows of small, empty cribs and discarded toys tell a silent story of the Great One's most catastrophic failure, the tragedy of their cosmic parenthood. It is a nursery where no child was ever nurtured, a testament to the Church's attempt to replicate the Great One's yearning, resulting only in the creation of helpless celestial children, beings trapped between states, forever infantile, forever incomplete. Nowhere, however, does the architecture become a more direct reflection of madness than in Yharnam, the unseen village. Here, the mensis ritual has warped reality itself, fusing stone and flesh into a cohesive nightmare. The walls are built of petrified bodies, writhing in silent agony, their forms merged with the very foundations of the city. This is not a place where madness occurred. The architecture ceased and the madness made manifest. It is the physical result of a forced, desperate, and unnatural attempt at communion, a ritual that resulted not in ascension, but in the stillbirth of a collective mind. The impossible geometries, the labyrinthine passages guarded by an endless procession of hunters, and the oppressive chant that echoes through its streets all reflect the shattered, obsessive consciousness of its architects. Yharnam is a city-sized scar, a monument to the fatal flaw in humanity's attempts to force a connection that the Great Ones themselves cannot properly form. Finally, we find the purest expression of these eldritch truths in the nightmare realms. For these are not places built of stone at all, but landscapes sculpted directly from consciousness. The hunter's dream, in its quiet solitude, represents an ordered, curated loneliness. It is a workshop, a garden, a small island of seeming sanity, But its comfort is artificial, its safety a gilded cage. Its architecture is functional and serene, designed by the moon presence to be the perfect cosmic nursery, a space of calm manipulation where potential surrogates can be tested and honed in complete isolation from the world they are meant to save. In stark contrast, the nightmare frontier is the untamed wilderness of a cosmic mind, a barren, poisonous landscape reflecting a consciousness that is sterile and fundamentally hostile to mortal life. Its jagged cliffs and toxic swamps are the geography of an alien intellect, a place where survival itself is a test of worthiness. We see the mind of a grieving child and an obsessed scholar made real. Its impossible towers twist towards a black sky. Its central brain radiates palpable madness, and its broken pathways lead only to further confusion. It is the architecture of a shattered intellect, a space where thought and reality have collapsed into one another, creating a prison of eternal cyclical obsession. The physical world of Bloodborne, in its every detail, is a text written in shadow and stone, telling the story of the Great One's immense sorrow, their failed grasp for fatherhood, and the madness that spills forth from their cosmic loneliness. The cries of cosmic children that echo throughout Bloodborne, from Murgo's distant wailing to the soft whimpers of Ariana's offspring, create a symphony of cosmic sorrow that reveals the deepest tragedy of the Great One's existence. These cries represent not just simple distress, but a fundamental expression of consciousness trapped between mortal vulnerability and cosmic awareness, unable to find comfort or meaning in either state. They are the constant, sorrowful lament for a potential that can never be fulfilled, the sound of a godchild forever stunted in the abyss of its own impossible being. Murgo's crying, which suffuses the nightmare of Mensis with a perpetual sense of grief, represents the most profound expression of this cosmic childhood trauma. As a being born of both the Pthumerian queen Yharnam and the formless Great One Edon, Murgo exists in a state of perpetual infancy, possessing immense cosmic awareness without the emotional development necessary to process or understand that awareness. The child's consciousness perceives the vast cold truths of the cosmos, the loneliness of its parent, the suffering of those who seek it. Yet, it can only respond with the helpless, undifferentiated cry of a newborn. The formless nature of Murgo's existence, inherited from Edon, prevents the child from ever experiencing the physical comfort and sensory input that normal infants require for healthy development. Without a body, Murgo cannot be held, cannot be fed, cannot be soothed through simple physical contact, leaving only the delegated, artificial care of the wet nurse to address its endless needs. The constant, unchanging nature of Murgo's crying suggests a being in perpetual, unresolvable distress, a consciousness that is aware of universal suffering but possesses no framework for accepting it. The school of Mensis ritual to contact Murgo reveals humanity's tragic misunderstanding of this condition. They approach the crying child not as surrogate parents offering comfort, but as scholars seeking knowledge, their cages acting as antennae to receive cosmic truth. They ignored the child's profound emotional and developmental needs, and the stillbirth of their minds was the inevitable result, the consequence of trying to extract wisdom from a being whose entire existence was a scream of unmet need. The orphan of Kos represents another, more violent aspect of this cosmic parental failure, a being born from death and trauma. The orphan embodies the rage and abandonment that result from inadequate cosmic parenting. Its very emergence from its dead mother's corpse is a symbol of birth without nurturing, an entry into existence defined by violence and loss. The orphan's aggressive behavior and eventual self-destructive return to the cosmic ocean suggest a consciousness that has been traumatized from the very moment of its creation. Without a parent to provide care, guidance, or context for its immense power, the orphan becomes a being of pure, instinctual rage. lashing out at anything that approaches while remaining fundamentally isolated and alone. Its tormented shrieks are not the cries of an infant, but the battle cries of a being who has only ever known a world of hostility. The orphan's final dissolution back into the cosmic sea, following its defeat, represents both a tragic death and a merciful liberation. The child finally escapes the agony of its stunted, violent existence by returning to the undifferentiated cosmic consciousness from which it emerged, its potential for growth forever lost, but its suffering finally at an end. Ariana's child represents a different form of cosmic childhood tragedy, a being created through unwanted cosmic intervention that depends entirely on its mortal mother for survival. The child's pale, tentacled form suggests an incomplete development, a being caught between human and cosmic physicality without fully achieving either state. It is a fragile fusion, more vulnerable than a normal human infant, and lacking the transcendent power of a true Great One. The child's inability to survive separation from Ariana reveals the fundamental dependency that characterizes most of these hybrid offspring, rather than achieving the independence and power that cosmic reproduction supposedly offers. These children become bound to their mortal origins, perpetually requiring the life force of a mother who is herself traumatized by the experience. Ariana's fear and withdrawal, following her child's birth, demonstrates the profound psychological cost of becoming an unwilling participant in cosmic reproduction. The horror she experiences suggests a deep, instinctual recognition that her child is fundamentally alien to her, a creature of cosmic need whose existence serves a purpose far beyond the bonds of maternal love. The various failed attempts at artificial cosmic child creation reveal the Great One's desperation and their profound misunderstanding of development. The One Reborn, the living failures, and the celestial children represent attempts to bypass the slow, natural processes of gestation and maturation that are necessary for the formation of a stable consciousness. These artificial children consistently fail because they lack the gradual developmental journey that allows a mind to adapt to increasing levels of awareness. The One Reborn is a grotesque parody of birth, a hideous amalgamation of corpses given a semblance of life, but possessing no unified consciousness to guide its immense form. It is a body without a mind, a failed vessel for a cosmic soul. The living failures are aptly named beings who have been granted cosmic awareness through brutal experimentation, but lack the mental structure to process it. They are trapped in a state of helpless confusion, their minds open to the cosmos, but their bodies and wills unable to act, their very existence a testament to the horror of forced enlightenment. The celestial children of the Upper Cathedral Ward are beings transformed, not born. Their enlarged heads suggest enhanced cognitive capacity, but their passive, helpless nature indicates a complete failure of emotional and social development. They are living instruments for cosmic perception, but they are not children in any meaningful sense. Their own potential for growth sacrificed for the sake of the choir's research. Against this backdrop of failure, the hunter's potential transformation into an infant Great One represents the most successful attempt at creating a cosmic child. Yet even this success is steeped in tragedy. The newly transformed hunter possesses both its mortal memories and a newfound cosmic awareness, but exists in an infantile state that requires artificial care and guidance from the doll. This very success reveals a fundamental truth about the Great One's project. Cosmic consciousness is so alien that it cannot simply be grafted onto a mature mortal mind. The consciousness must be regressed to its most basic state, the hunter's life of experience reduced to a mere foundation upon which a new cosmic development must be built from scratch. The fact that the transformed hunter begins its cosmic existence as a helpless infant suggests that becoming a Great One necessitates a complete developmental restart. This pattern suggests that cosmic reproduction is not about creating new beings, but about recycling and repurposing existing consciousnesses for cosmic ends. The ultimate tragedy of cosmic childhood then lies in its fundamental impossibility. The Great Ones seek to create beings who can bridge the chasm between mortal and cosmic. But the very process of creation stunts them upon that bridge, belonging to neither world. The resulting children are powerful but isolated, aware but emotionally incomplete, transcendent but profoundly, unutterably lonely. Their lament is the true legacy of the Great Ones, an endless cry of unfulfilled potential echoing through the abyss. The human mind, in its delicate and finite construction, is a vessel built for a quiet sea. It is not meant for the howling tempests of cosmic truth. The measure of one's exposure to this storm is called insight, a currency of perception that buys glimpses of reality at the cost of the mind's own foundation. Insight is more than knowledge. It is the dawning horror of comprehension, the slow opening of eyes on the inside that Provost Willem so desperately sought. It represents the accumulation of forbidden awareness, the gradual shedding of the comforting illusions that allow for sane, mortal existence. Each point of insight is a crack in the dam that holds back the ocean of madness, a whisper of the Great One's true nature, a flicker of the multidimensional reality that lurks just beyond the veil of human perception. To gain insight is to begin a journey away from the self, trading the familiar shores of humanity for the promise of a terrible, transcendent understanding. This journey begins with the shattering of a protective veil, a merciful ignorance that shields humanity from the full scope of their cosmic insignificance. This veil is not merely metaphorical. It is a tangible barrier, maintained by the vacuous spider, Rom. Once a Bergenworth scholar, Rom was granted eyes. But this gift of sight did not bring enlightenment. Instead, it brought emptiness, transforming her into a mindless guardian, a living seal upon cosmic truth. Before Rom is defeated, Yharnam is a city of beasts and madmen. A gothic horror story, terrible yet understandable in its own grim logic. But after her death, when the blood moon hangs low and the veil is torn, the true cosmic horror is revealed. The lesser amygdalae, colossal spider-like beings, are suddenly visible, clinging to the spires of the grand cathedral and other grand structures. They were always there, observing, waiting, but without insight. Without the breaking of Rom's spell, humanity remained blessedly unaware. This protection is the price of unseeing, a life lived in a comforting falsehood, where the greatest monsters are merely transformed men. The price of seeing, however, is the slow, inexorable erosion of the self. The most acute manifestation of this price is the phenomenon known as frenzy. This is not simple fear or madness, but a psychic hemorrhage caused by the sudden, violent influx of cosmic information. The human brain evolved to process 3 dimensions, and a linear flow of time simply cannot withstand the multidimensional, atemporal truths of the Great Ones. To perceive them fully is to have one's consciousness flooded with concepts so alien and vast that the mind breaks under the strain. We see this most vividly in the Winter Lanterns, grotesque beings that patrol the nightmare realms. Their very presence is a weapon of cosmic revelation. Their off-key, droning song is a lure, drawing the curious to their doom, and their gaze is a torrent of maddening insight. To be seen by a winter lantern is to have the secrets of the cosmos poured directly into your mind, an experience so overwhelming it causes the brain to literally explode from the pressure. The higher a hunter's insight, the faster frenzy builds, a direct mechanical representation of the central theme. The more you know, the more vulnerable you become to the horror of that knowledge. The brain of Mensis represents another source of this informational assault. A colossal, rotten mass of eyes and neural tissue, it projects a field of pure madness, a constant ambient broadcast of cosmic truths that shatters the sanity of any who linger in its sight. Frenzy is the price of a single, overwhelming glimpse of the truth. But the slow accumulation of insight exacts a different, more insidious toll: the gradual loss of human identity. As a hunter's mind fills with cosmic awareness, their own mortal memories, desires, and perspectives are slowly overwritten. They begin to think less like a human and more like the very beings they hunt. Their sense of self, the anchor of their mortal existence, begins to dissolve into the vast impersonal ocean of cosmic consciousness. Mikolash, the host of the nightmare, embodies this tragic state of being. He achieved the cosmic awareness he sought, but his mind was shattered in the process. He is trapped in an endless labyrinth of his own broken thoughts, repeating fragments of lore and desperate pleas for understanding. His humanity is gone, replaced by a fractured echo of his former ambition. He has gained eyes, but has lost the self that was meant to see through them. The kin of the cosmos, such as the celestial emissaries found in the upper cathedral ward, represent the physical manifestation of this process. These were once humans, scholars and patients of the healing church, who were granted cosmic insight through horrific experimentation. In gaining this awareness, they were transformed into frail, bulbous-headed creatures that are more alien than human. They have transcended their mortal forms, but have become something weak and pathetic, pale imitations of the great ones they sought to emulate. They have traded their humanity for a form of cosmic consciousness that leaves them lost, directionless, and utterly alone. This loss of self is the ultimate paradox in the Great One's quest for surrogate children. They seek beings with a mortal perspective, beings whose unique experiences can bridge the gap between human and cosmic existence. To achieve this, they must guide potential candidates toward greater insight, granting them the awareness needed to perceive and interact with the cosmic realms. Yet this very process of enlightenment is what so often destroys the mortal perspective they value. From the Great One's sympathetic, yet profoundly alien viewpoint, the madness and loss of self that plagues humanity are tragic side effects, failed experiments on the long and arduous path to creating a successful surrogate. They see a mind shattered by frenzy not as a personal tragedy, but as a vessel that could not contain the gift of cosmic truth. They see the kin not as mutilated humans, but as an imperfect step in an evolutionary process. Their cosmic compassion is real, but it operates on a scale that renders individual human suffering insignificant. They are gardeners tending to a vast and complex ecosystem, and the loss of a few individual plants is a necessary, if regrettable, part of cultivating the one perfect bloom. The Great Ones do not want to drive humanity mad. They want to elevate humanity. But their understanding of elevation is so fundamentally different from our own that the process becomes indistinguishable from destruction. And so, the price of unseeing is to live and die in a cage, protected from the truth, but forever limited by it. The price of seeing is to have the walls of that cage dissolve, only to find oneself adrift in an infinite, terrifying void that annihilates the very concept of who you are. Insight is the key that unlocks the cage, but it also dissolves the key holder. It is the ultimate double-edged sword, where the path to transcendence is also the path to self-annihilation. The hunter walks this razor's edge, gathering fragments of terrifying truth, each one bringing them closer to the Great One's desire and further from their own soul. The slow creep of madness is the sound of the cosmos, whispering its secrets, secrets that were never meant for mortal ears. Undefined the hunt concludes, but the silence that follows is not one of peace, but of profound and unending transition. For the hunter who has slain the nightmare and stared into the abyss of cosmic truth, the end of one struggle is merely the beginning of another, a vigil that stretches into eternity, defined not by the clash of steel, but by the crushing weight of forbidden knowledge. This is the ultimate fate of those who succeed too well, who gather too much insight, who trade their mortal perspective for a glimpse of the mechanisms that turn the universe. They do not simply return to the waking world, for the world they once knew no longer exists for them. Instead, they become guardians of the very cycles they sought to break, their consciousness forever altered, their existence bound to the lonely truths they have uncovered. This vigil takes one of two forms, each a unique expression of cosmic servitude, each a prison crafted from victory itself. In one resolution, the hunter accepts German's offer of release, only to find themselves bound by a higher power, a new contract written in moonlight and blood. The moon presence descends, not to destroy, but to claim its prize, to anoint a new caretaker for its cosmic nursery. The hunter, who once sought freedom from the dream, now becomes its permanent resident, its silent, watchful host. They take Gehrman's place in the old workshop, the familiar scent of wood and incense, now the scent of their own eternal confinement. The wheelchair becomes their throne and their shackle, a vantage point from which they will oversee countless future hunts, guiding new souls into the same labyrinth of death and rebirth that once defined their own existence. This role is a burden of terrible empathy. The new host knows the futility of the hunt, understands that each beast slain, each drop of blood spilt, serves only to feed a cosmic cycle of loss and yearning. They see the hope in the eyes of each new hunter, and they know, with the certainty of one who has lived it, that this hope will curdle into despair, that every victory is just another turn of the wheel. Their cosmic knowledge prevents them from offering true comfort, for the only real comfort would be a lie. They are a sympathetic jailer, a knowing puppet whose compassion manifests as the quiet maintenance of a system of suffering. The ghosts of all the hunters who came before, their own past self included, seem to linger in the dream's timeless air, their triumphs and failures echoing in the unchanging workshop, a constant reminder of the eternal recurrence that now defines reality. The alternative fate is one of even more profound and terrifying transformation, but for ascension into the very state of being that perpetuates the cosmic tragedy. The hunter who has consumed the chords of lost children, who has absorbed the grief of the cosmos, and refused to bend to the moon presence, undergoes a metamorphosis that defies mortal comprehension. Their physical form dissolves, their human consciousness fracturing and reforming into something nascent, squirming, and utterly alien. They become an infant great one, the successful surrogate so long sought, the culmination of an eon of cosmic yearning. This is not a victory in any human sense, but a complete absorption into the cycle of cosmic sorrow. The knowledge they now possess is not the intellectual insight of a scholar, but the innate, instinctual truth of a god. The memories of their mortal life, the faces of allies, the feel of a weapon in their hand, the terror of the hunt, all these experiences become the bedrock of a new and terrible consciousness, a foundation of mortal perspective that will be slowly eroded by the timeless, formless existence of a great one. Cradled in the arms of the doll, the new god begins its own eternal vigil, not as a developing tragedy. They are a being of immense potential, yet they are destined to inherit the same fundamental flaw of all their kind: the inability to reproduce, the all-consuming yearning for a surrogate. Their own heroic journey has only served to create another lonely god, ensuring the cycle will begin anew. Their burden is the knowledge that their own existence is the seed of future nightmares, that their hard-won ascension is the first chapter in another story of loss that will consume another city, another generation, another hunter. Regardless of the form their vigil takes, the core of the hunter's burden remains the same: the price of cosmic knowledge itself. The concept of insight in the world of Yharnam is not a simple measure of accumulated facts, but a fundamental alteration of perception, a peeling back of the veil of reality to witness the writhing, chaotic truth beneath. To gain insight is to gain eyes on the inside, to see the amygdalae clinging to the cathedrals, to hear the whispers of the great ones on the wind. But this sight comes at the cost of sanity. The human mind is not built to contain these truths, and the tension between mortal perception and cosmic reality manifests as frenzy, shattering overload of the senses and the soul. The hunter's eternal vigil is therefore a state of managed madness, a perpetual balancing act on the knife's edge of comprehension and collapse. They see the patterns that connect the beast's scourge to the healing church, the nightmare realms to the Pthumerian labyrinths. But this grand understanding offers no peace, only a clearer view of the cage that imprisons all living things. This cosmic awareness brings with it an inescapable isolation. The hunter can no longer see the world as humans do. The simple concerns of humanity, the joys of companionship, the comfort of ignorance, all become distant echoes of a life they can no longer lead. They are a ghost in the waking world, a being whose perspective has been so fundamentally warped that they can no longer form genuine connections with those who remain blissfully, mercifully. Like Provost Willem, sitting motionless by the moonside lake, they are trapped by their own elevated perspective, able to see the truth, but unable to meaningfully interact with the world they have left behind. Their knowledge becomes a barrier, a silent chasm separating them from all others. The vigil is lonely because cosmic truth is a solitary burden, a revelation that can be experienced but never truly shared. The hunter, in their quest to save Yharnam, has become its most tragic and isolated citizen, a silent sentinel bearing witness to a truth that has cost them everything: their life, their future, their very humanity. They stand guard over a nightmare, not from the outside, but from its very heart, forever a part of the cosmic sorrow they once fought to end. The cycle of loss that defines the great ones, their recurring tragedy of birth and bereavement, extends far beyond their own private grief. It is a microcosm, a single, sorrowful note in a vast and eternal symphony of repeating despair. The universe itself, in the chilling lore of both Yharnam and the worlds beyond, is trapped within a series of endless interlocking cycles. These are not cycles of progress, not spirals of evolution leading to some higher state of being. They are perfect circles, inescapable loops of cosmic history that repeat their patterns with the same indifferent precision as a clock marking hours that have already passed 1 billion times before. The fall of Yharnam is not a singular event, but a recurring verse in an ancient, terrible poem. Before Yharnam bled, the sands of Loran withered under the same cosmic gaze, its people warped into beasts by the same celestial influences. And before Loran, the Pthumerians delved into the earth, communing with the Great Ones in their labyrinthine tombs, only to become eternal, unquiet jailers of their own civilization, their story ending in the same silence that would one day claim Yharnam's streets. Each civilization believes itself unique, its discoveries unprecedented, its tragedy singular. Yet each one is merely a new cast of actors performing the same play on a different stage. They discover the old blood or the whispers of the cosmos. They seek transcendence, power, or communion. And in doing so, they open a door that has been opened countless times before, inviting in the same cosmic parents whose embrace is both salvation and annihilation. This pattern of civilizational rise and fall mirrors the Great One's own futile cycle. Just as they yearn for a child they cannot keep, humanity yearns for a cosmic truth it cannot withstand. The very act of reaching for transcendence ensures the loss of that which makes the seekers valuable, their humanity. The end result is always the same: a society of beasts, kin, or silent husks, a testament to another failed attempt at bridging the mortal and the divine. The hunter's own journey is trapped within a smaller, more personal loop. Through the hunter's dream, death loses its finality, becoming a mere inconvenience, a brief interruption before the hunt begins anew. This cycle of death and rebirth serves the moon presence's purpose. But it also grinds away at the hunter's mortal attachments. making them more like the timeless beings they serve with every revival. And should the hunter succeed in the ultimate sense, consuming the chords of failed cosmic births and transcending their own humanity, they do not break the cycle. They become its new beginning, the infant Great One, born of human struggle and cosmic sorrow, will one day grow. And as a Great One, it too will lose its child, and then yearn for a surrogate, setting in motion the very same chain of events that led to its own creation. The victory is an illusion, a changing of the guard in a prison from which there is no escape. The cycle is the only true victor, ensuring its own perpetuation through the very beings who believe they can master it. This concept of inescapable, repeating doom finds its grandest expression in the broader mythos of the cosmic entities that inspired Yharnam's horrors. The universe described by Lovecraft is not merely old. It is pathologically cyclical. Time itself is not a straight line, but a tangled knot which beings like Yog, Sothoth perceive all at once. For such an entity, the fall of Yharnam has already happened, is happening now, and will happen again, all in the same moment. The very stars in the sky are components of a cosmic clockwork, their alignments dictating the ebb and flow of cosmic influence. The recurring phrase, "when the stars are right," does not signify a singular apocalyptic event. It describes a phase in a perpetual cycle, like the turning of a season. Cthulhu sleeps and dreams in his sunken city of R'lyeh, but his slumber is not eternal. The cycle will turn, the stars will align, and he will rise again, only to perhaps one day be returned to his slumber, a pattern repeating across aeons that dwarf human comprehension. Humanity, in this vision, is but a fleeting infestation on a tiny world, its entire history a brief, frantic interlude between the slumber of one cosmic horror and the awakening of another. The ancient races, the elder things who built cities in the Antarctic wastes, the great race of Yeth who conquered time itself, all fell victim to these cycles. They learned the truth that they were temporary inhabitants in a cosmos governed by forces that would inevitably erase them, their knowledge a curse that only illuminated their own doom. The ultimate cycle is that of Azathoth, the blind idiot god who slumbers at the center of infinity. His dreams are reality itself, the entirety of existence, a mere whim in his unconscious mind. Should he awaken, all of creation, every great one, every hunter, every fleeting moment of joy or sorrow will simply cease to be, vanishing like a forgotten dream. The universe exists in the pause between his breaths, a fragile bubble of consciousness that could pop at any moment, only to perhaps be dreamed anew in a slightly different form. This is the ultimate despair, the knowledge that not only is individual struggle futile, but existence itself is contingent on the sleep of a mindless god. The great ones of Yharnam are trapped within this grander, more terrifying mechanism. Their personal cycle of grief is a symptom of the universe's inherent nature. They are powerful enough to perceive the patterns, to understand the endless repetition of existence, and this awareness is the source of their sympathetic nature and their unending sorrow. They see their own futility reflected in the rise and fall of mortal races. This is why insight is so dangerous. It is the process of aligning one's own consciousness with this horrifying, cyclical truth. To gain insight is to begin to see the bars of the cosmic prison. Ram, the vacuous spider, acts as a living shield, her mindless state holding back the full revelation of this repeating despair. Her death does not create the blood moon. It simply allows everyone to finally see the machinery of the cycle that was always turning, just out of sight. The Chalice dungeons provide a physical journey through this cycle. As the hunter descends deeper, they travel backwards in time, through the layers of failed civilizations. Yet, the architecture remains eerily similar. The enemies are recognizable precursors to those in Yharnam, and the great ones encountered within are the very same beings who trouble the present. The descent reveals not a clear history of progress, but a dizzying repetition of the same themes, the same rituals, and the same failures etched into the very foundations of the world. The true horror of this universe, then, is not the beast that lurks in the shadows, nor the tentacled god that sleeps beneath the waves. The true horror is the structure of reality itself. That free will is an illusion in a system designed to repeat, and that every sacrifice, every victory, every moment of defiance, ultimately serves only to reset the board for the next identical game. Despair, in this context, is not an emotional reaction. It is a state of enlightenment. It is the clarity that comes from understanding the eternal, grinding mechanics of a cosmos that does not care. A universe trapped in a nightmare from which it can never awaken, because the nightmare is all there is, and all there ever will be forever. Undefined beyond the veil of sight, in the silent, interstitial spaces where reality frays into dream, the universe of the Great Ones is not a quiet place. It is filled with a sound, a constant and pervasive lament that ripples through the very fabric of the cosmos, an unending symphony of cosmic grief. Nor the clamor of conquest, but the far more terrible music of profound and eternal loss. The wailing echoes of kin who were either never born, or born only to suffer. The most persistent and heartbreaking note in this sorrowful chorus is the incessant disembodied weeping of Murko, a sound that saturates the twisted architecture of its nightmare, a constant, piercing reminder of a childhood that will never begin. Murgo's cry is the purest expression of the Great One's parental tragedy. It is the sound of absolute vulnerability, of a consciousness trapped in an infantile state, possessing the cosmic awareness of its lineage, but lacking the developmental maturity to process its own existence. The cry is formless, just like its father, Eden, an echo without a source, a need without a body to soothe. It broadcasts a single, unchanging message of distress across the plains, a signal of parental failure so potent that it warps reality, driving the scholars of Mensis to madness in their attempts to commune with it, to answer a call that can never truly be satisfied. The wet nurse who guards the infant's empty carriage offers only silence, a physical barrier against a purely sonic threat, a futile attempt to muffle a grief that originates not in the throat, but in the very nature of being. Murgo's lament is the sound of a need that has become an eternal state, a constant, unresolvable sorrow that forms the very foundation of its pocket dimension. Contrasting this passive, infantile sorrow is the violent, rage-filled shriek of the orphan of Cois, where Murgo's cry is a plea for comfort that never arrives. The orphan's scream is a declaration of war against existence itself. Born from the desecrated corpse of its mother, its first perception of reality was one of violation, trauma, and abandonment. Its wail is not one of need, but of pure, unadulterated agony and fury, the sound of a being whose potential for connection was severed at the very moment of its creation. The orphan's cry is an attack, a physical force that lashes out at the hunter, a sonic manifestation of its tormented spirit. It embodies the other side of cosmic parental failure, not the tragedy of neglect, but the horror of trauma. It is the sound of a child who never knew a moment of peace, whose entire existence is defined by the violence of its birth and the loneliness of its immediate abandonment, forever raging against a shoreline that offers no solace before finally returning its grief to the black, silent waters of the cosmic sea. This symphony of grief, however, is not composed solely of the audible cries of infant Great Ones. It also contains the silent, terrible laments of the lost kin, those mortals who were transformed in the Great One's quest for surrogates. The living failures, with their grotesquely enlarged heads and frail, elongated limbs, offer a silent chorus of sorrow. They reach toward the sky, toward the cosmic truth they were made to perceive, but cannot comprehend. their gestures a form of mute prayer, a wail articulated not by voice, but by the desperate posture of their twisted bodies. Their failure is their song, a silent testament to an ascension that resulted only in a deeper form of imprisonment. Their minds granted eyes, but not the consciousness to process what they see. They exist in a state of perpetual, silent awe and terror, their grief expressed in a shared hopeless gesture that resonates with a sorrow deeper than any sound. The celestial emissaries, gathered in the lumen flower gardens, contribute their own strange notes to the symphony. Their gurgling, bubbling sounds are the vestiges of a human voice, warped and transformed by cosmic insight. It is a language of the lost, the sound of a consciousness dissolved in the vastness of the cosmos. They are kin who have successfully transcended their human forms, only to lose their individuality, becoming part of a collective that wanders aimlessly. Their soft, wet cries, a gentle, almost mindless expression of a humanity that has been forgotten but not entirely erased. Theirs is a quiet, burbling grief, the lament of beings who have lost themselves so completely that they can no longer even remember what it is they are mourning. They are the echoes of the choir's ambition, a beautiful and horrifying testament to the price of hearing the cosmos song and losing one's own voice in the process. Even the architecture of Yharnam seems to resonate with this cosmic grief. Its spires, like mournful fingers reaching for an uncaring sky, its empty streets echoing with a silence that is heavy with unspoken loss. The very air seems to hum with this sorrow, a low thrum of collective psychic pain that intensifies with the descent of the blood moon. It is into this symphony that the hunter is born, tasked with navigating a world saturated with the echoes of others' pain. The hunter's own silence throughout their journey becomes a form of counterpoint, a quiet resolve set against the overwhelming chorus of cosmic despair. Every beast's roar, every victim's scream, becomes another instrument in this orchestra of suffering, all of it stemming from the Great One's single, original note of loss. Ultimately, this symphony of grief is an echo of the Great One's own internal state. Their quest for surrogate children is an attempt to create a new music, to introduce a note of hope or connection that might change the composition of their eternal sorrow. Yet, their methods only ever add new, discordant movements to the piece. The shriek of the orphan, the weeping of Murgo, the silent yearning of the failures, these are the fruits of their efforts. They are cosmic composers trapped in a feedback loop, their attempts to soothe their own loneliness only amplifying the sounds of suffering across the dimensions. The utterances that Kirill transcribed into runes may be the only coherent melody, a fleeting attempt to translate the sorrow into a language that could be understood, a message in a bottle cast into a sea of noise. But it is not enough. The wailing echoes of lost kin continue to reverberate through the dreamlands. Terrible, an eternal symphony that is the true music of the spheres. Across the chasm that separates the mortal from the cosmic, there lies the faint, shimmering hope of a bridge. This is not a structure of physical matter, but an ideal of consciousness, a state of being where the finite can commune with the infinite without being annihilated, and where the infinite can experience the finite without condescension or corruption. The true, ultimate purpose of the Great Ones, and the silent, dreaming intent of the Old Ones, lies in the desperate, eternal construction of this unattainable bridge. It is a project born from a loneliness so profound. It warps the fabric of reality itself, a yearning for connection that transcends the simple grief of a lost child, and speaks to the very nature of existence in a cold, indifferent void. This bridge represents the final, impossible synthesis. The Great Ones, in their ascent to multidimensional awareness, have lost the precious, grounding anchor of singular experience. They perceive all time, all possibility, yet they cannot feel the simple linear passage of a single day. the warmth of a single moment of genuine, shared understanding. Their sympathetic nature is not a benevolent grace, but the aching echo of a connection they remember but can no longer form. They seek to create a being that can stand with one foot in the immediacy of mortal life, and the other in the vastness of cosmic truth, a child who is also a companion, a successor who is also a translator, capable of explaining the value of a fleeting human life to a being for whom all moments exist at once. Humanity, in this grand tragic project, serves as the most promising and most flawed of all materials. Within the mortal coil lies the very essence the great ones have lost, the capacity for change, for growth, for love, born of shared vulnerability. The human journey, with its struggles, its triumphs, its griefs, creates a richness of perspective, a unique tapestry of consciousness that is utterly alien and deeply desirable to a static, eternal being. The very process of preparing a mortal to bear the weight of cosmic awareness, the granting of eyes on the inside, necessarily scours away the humanity that made them a worthy candidate. The bridge cannot be built because the foundation crumbles as the far shore is approached. Rom, the vacuous spider, becomes a perfect cosmic shield, but at the cost of the scholarly mind that once sought truth. The kin of the cosmos gain insight, but lose all capacity for the emotional connection their creators crave. The hunter, in their final transformation, becomes a cosmic infant, but the unique consciousness forged in the crucible of Yharnam is subsumed, reset to a state of pure potential, the bridge collapsing the moment it is complete. Here, the yearning horror of Bloodborne finds its echo in the silent, indifferent horror of the Lovecraftian mythos. The old ones of Lovecraft are not sympathetic. They are simply vast. Their existence is a matter of cosmic fact, their brief intersections with humanity as incidental and meaningless as a man treading on an anthill. The horror of Cthulhu is that he does not care, that his dreams leak into our world as nightmares, not by intent, but by proximity. Bloodborne's profound and terrible contribution to this mythos is to replace that cosmic indifference with cosmic longing. The horror is not that the great ones do not see us, but that they see us all too clearly as a potential cure for their own eternal solitude. Their attempts at contact are not accidental, but deliberate, focused, and filtered through a consciousness that cannot comprehend mortal fragility. The nightmare that consumes Yharnam is not a byproduct of their existence, but a direct result of their focused, compassionate, and utterly destructive attempts to connect. The void is not empty, it is lonely, and its attempts to fill that loneliness are what give birth to monsters. This cosmic search for an impossible connection serves as a perfect, horrifying mirror for the human condition itself. The Great One's struggle reflects our own deepest anxieties about growth, knowledge, and isolation. Every step we take toward greater understanding, toward a broader perspective, risks severing our ties to the simple communal truths we once held. The scholar who becomes so lost and abstract thought that they can no longer connect with their family. The artist whose vision is so singular it isolates them from their peers. The leader whose power creates an unbridgeable distance from their people. We, too, seek to build bridges of understanding across the voids that separate our individual consciousnesses, and we, too, often fail. Their failure, a confirmation of our deepest fear, that to truly know everything is to be truly, irrevocably alone. And so, the hunt for this bridge is an eternal one, for it can never be truly found. The gap between the fleeting and the forever may be a fundamental law of existence, a necessary division that preserves the meaning of both. The great ones are trapped in a cycle, not merely of losing their children, but of losing the very possibility of connection with each attempt they make. Their cosmic awareness allows them to perceive the infinite futility of their actions, yet their fundamental nature compels them to try again and again across countless worlds and countless eons. The infant Great One, born from the hunter's sacrifice, is not a solution, but a continuation. It too will grow, and in its transcendence, it too will lose its connection to the mortal memories that formed its birth, and it too will one day look out upon the finite worlds and begin to yearn for a surrogate, for a child, for a bridge, back to a home it can remember, but never truly reach. The true void is not the space between the stars, but the space between two conscious minds, and the most terrifying truth of all is that some voids can never be crossed,